We are live for another week of Growing with My Fellow Growers. Hopefully, it looks like Zoom is loading over here. It should be live on the YouTube here any second. But I am your host, Jack Greenstock, joined as always by an amazing panel. I'm doing a little bit of stalling because it didn't look like it was going to go live, but it is live over here now on the YouTube. So I will pass it over first without further ado to Spartan Grown.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, I just got the notification on my phone, so we're definitely live. I am Spartan Grown. You can find me on Instagram at Spartan Grown, all one word with no spaces. Or you can shoot me an email, spartangrown@gmail.com or russ at the gmlarmy.com for all of your lighting or growing questions.
Happy to have you back. Looks like we got We Nerd DWC showing up first in the chat today. I clicked on over to the live chat or view all messages, but we've also got the American one who's joined us so far today. So cheers, Tom.
Cheers, Jack Spartan and everyone in chat. I am the American one on the YouTube and the American one underscore with underscore Keens on the IG. And yeah, I'm glad I made it this week. It's good to see you guys, and I'm looking forward to it.
Always look forward to these weeks as well. And I kind of brought up a random topic in my head that I think we could talk about that we haven't covered too much recently. I wrote terpenes, aromas, and flavors. But in the context of doing that, I kind of want to talk about some of the strains that you find them in. So, like, we'll talk about limonene, for example, and then we can go through some strains that we've grown that have them, and maybe some other things that might also have been in there, and some of the effects that you might typically associate with some of those terpenes, because a lot of people are still thinking a lot about just THC or just cannabinoids, but terpenes, esters, aldehydes, ketones, all that different flavorants and minor cannabinoids are important as well to the entourage effect that many of us know and love. And so I think it's a good topic to maybe touch back on a little bit. And I might just pull up a little list of cannabis terpenes, and then maybe we could go through and talk about some strains that we've found them in. And I guess we could start with limonene, because I did already mention that one, or limonene, some pronounce it. That might be the actual proper pronunciation, but like Jack Herer and Jack Herrera, people will say stuff wrong all the way around the community for years and years to come. So, with that said, limonene, what are some strains that pop into your head that you've either grown or gotten to try consuming that you're pretty confident or know for sure have limonene in there? Spartan.
I'm gonna say the first comes to my mind is the Limarilla from Brandon Rust, or the Vortex might have some of that in that from TGA Genetics. Uh, So I because that was more on the lemon side, but on the limerilla, it's more like gas and lime, like straight lime. I like the lime. I think lime is kind of like last year and this year, kind of the hot terp around here, where you're seeing more. Fergurli has a really good lime skunk. It's really limey. It's really nice. I'm seeing more and more lime. So that's the one that's coming more around. Lime skunk, I guess, is another one. I didn't grow it, but Fergurli did. And that's another good example I can think of right off the top of my head.
That is a great example. I'm a big fan of limonene or limonene, however it is pronounced, but often found in the citrus fruits in their rinds. It could be grapefruit, it could be lemon, it could be lime, it could be, any other number of citrus. There's other minor, usually esters and other terpenes that, like valencine, for example, is one that's found in Valencia oranges, unsurprisingly, that creates more of the Valencia orange smell versus like a lemon. So, limonene is commonly found in a lot of citrusy cannabis, and even one nose to another, I might smell it and say, "Oh, this is pretty lemony," and Spartan might smell it and go, "Oh, this is kind of limey," and Tal might smell it and say, "Oh, it smells like an orange." But
Well,
we're all getting
then
citrus in
you have
our
terpenes that are so
association.
close, like terpinolene. So terpinoline's in a lot of these same ones. They have limonene in it. So what is it? Is it the terpinolene or is it the limonene that I'm like? You know what I mean? So that's
It's a
always fun.
combination. That's the beauty of the kind of conversation tonight is we get into maybe individuals and then what they're maybe commonly associated with. So like terpinolene and limonene are very much associated. I think pinene can also be in there, alpha and beta pinene. You'll find a little bit with terpinolene. There's It's called the terpinene family. So those three are all related. Um, Terpinene and terpinolene, pinene, alpha and beta. But yeah, there's definitely lots of connections and relations, and some of them can even be converted from one to the other, which is kind of crazy. But Tao, I'm curious if you have any super lemony, limey, or citrusy
Yeah,
strains that
I
have
would
come up in your
I
experience.
would say like I really don't know. I never had any of my things tested with a lab, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Pandora's box, Jack the Ripper, And obviously, I don't know if it's lemonine or if there's a different orange terp, but the Asian orange is powerfully orangey, like a wine, like a the skin, and those three stand out. And it's no surprise that they're all from Subcool. You know, I'm telling you, like, yeah, just thinking about it, he has the most terpiest stuff I think I've grown. It was a couple other ones, obviously, that were really over the top, but yeah, those three. And then I had like a couple of them. They were called like lemon haze or lemon haze OG or whatever that had some lemon flavor at least. And yeah, I think even like some of that the sweet skunk I think might have some you know lemon flavor in it and haze some. But like yeah, I say that because it was skunk haze mix that I grew out that had some lemon in it. So, but I know that that sweet skunk like that's the more commonly found skunks that people end up with, and yeah. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
No, I think that's like I said, this is something that we kind of all take for granted a little bit, and we might think about it if you go to a dispensary or if you're like talking with friends and comparing different cuts that you have in your stable and stuff like that. But so many people are brand new growers or have only grown one, two, three, maybe four strains, and they might be looking for a strain with a certain terpene profile that they might have read about or had experienced on a travel or wherever, however it came to be. They found something that smelled a certain way or tasted a certain way or gave them a certain effect that they're looking for. And I would echo the Jack the Ripper with definitely having lots of lemon in there. Chernobyl as well, being that it's offspring of the
Oh yeah,
JTR.
that's
The
really like me too.
mine was like a lemon lime Slurpee. Like it almost tasted like a margarita. Um, that's a cut that I kicked myself for not keeping because it was frosty as hell. That was a really interesting situation because I had a plant that I'd consider like if not a 10 out of 10, about as close as I could get. It was a huge yielder, very potent, very flavorful, the Jack Spiked Punch. And I grew two of those next to the Chernobyl. And the Chernobyl was like a 9, 9.5, 9.75 even out of 10. Like it smelled great, tasted great. It yielded pretty solid, actually. It just, when it was next to like the best yielder I've ever grown still to this day, it, it colors things at a certain shade of green. And so
I've grown
that
it twice. I've let it go and got it back and grew it for a while, let it go again, and I always let it go because of the work of trimming that fucker. It's just so
she was
leaf.
leafy even inside. That is definitely a
Yeah.
downside of the Chernobyl because that was she was leafy. I called it the middle finger pheno because it even had like, right here with the leaf behind me, it had like a reverse fan leaf. And in flower, a lot of them even got little buds on that little node site where the leaf meets the stem. And but a lot of them had that kind of reverse fan leaf, which I thought was pretty funny, as it was sub cool. That's kind of very much within his attitude and punk rock nature, I guess. But yeah, great dude and bred lots of great stuff. Not surprising that he's, you know, on a couple of our lists already here. And definitely I'm leaning into it a little bit because he did have a lot of stuff that was on the citrus side from the Jack the Ripper and Space Queen and that kind of stuff, those crosses, the Vortex and everything. I'm drinking this. It's called Waterloo. It's just a sparkling water, but this one's called Flavor Town. It's a lemon Italian ice. And you would think that it's just like regular lemon water or whatever, but there's some other little element that makes it like we were talking about with like the what makes it orangey or what makes it, specifically that one thing. But there are little minor details that really bring you back, almost like the nostalgia of the nose. I've heard that smell is the strongest associated sense with memory. And so that would make some sense to me that it can kind of bring you back to a time or a place or an experience.
Yeah, and that's why classically you always lead with your nose when it comes to cannabis. If somebody hands you a bag or a nug, you take a look at it, and then your nose. If your nose isn't first, it's quite second usually. It's usually quickly second after taking a look at it. But
I've
yeah,
adopted that for everything from wine, because like you see all the wine drinkers. I'm not a big wine drinker. My wife does on occasion, and I'll sample it. And I think there is interesting flavors and things like that. And it's very complex and nice to dive into. But even like I was getting gelato last night with my wife at this place. Everything's made from scratch, and they have like different flavors at each little location based on the store that they took over. This recent one was like the electric company or electric repair or whatever. The last one was a hat maker. The last one was a dry cleaning, and they all do little themes or whatever. But like they have a flavor flight, and you go through and you taste. Basically, if you've never been there, like you get to taste each one. There's like six flavors or something. And before I pop it in my mouth with a little tiny spoon, I'll smell it because I think that just like smelling a strain of weed or something else. It gives you a little bit more idea of what you're about to experience. And even like the one that I didn't like, at least it kind of gave me more information on what I did or didn't like about it. And I think that our nose does know. It can tell you a lot more than maybe you expect. There's a reason that we smell food and instantly know if it's bad, right? If we can detect molds, mildews, and things like that, we're pretty good about, even if you haven't been trained classically, like it's just, you inherited that from thousands of years of humans dying from eating moldy cheeses and rotten meats and things like that, that didn't survive to pass on their genes. And so the ones who did inherently have some traits that can pick up on that stuff. So I'm curious if there's a terpene that either of you guys are particularly fond of that we could go on to next that you find in cannabis that you can think of a strain that you've maybe grown, and then we could go around the horn and kind of talk about some strains we find it in or some parts of the effects.
No, I've never really singled one out. I haven't found like a common denominator between the different strains that I really love. So I kind of satisfy two things at once because I'm a forever pheno hunter. I love growing, popping that pack of seeds and seeing what I get. So I love growing new strains, but I also, as a benefit of that, I get to try new strains all the time. And that's how I make my selections on just what's hitting me the best at that time in my life. Maybe, 10 years from now, I doubt I'll be holding on to many of the strains I have now, if any, because as I change, so are my selections going to change. So it's a really hard question to like pick one out because I haven't noticed a like common denominator because to be honest, I don't think that home testing has become one repeatable, accurate enough at a scale for the home grower to where it's still affordable too. Yeah, you can get repeatable somewhat, people would argue, with going to the same places that the commercial guys go to get it tested. But then you lose out on the affordability side of that seesaw, and it doesn't become affordable. Who's going to pay $65, $75 to get a terpene test on one strain and they want to test 10? You know what I mean? It's still a little out of reach. We still have work to go there. I'm sure there's going to be home units that work well in the future, but we're not there yet.
I'm more just going like on your nose, like you may have heard about or read about or seen, like you've been to the commercial market. And so, or, like Frugoli makes concentrate and so his lime skunk is super high in terpinolene or something like, so you can kind of get an idea of like, oh, terpinolene smells a lot like this. It tastes a lot like this. And maybe it has a certain,
Right, but I would argue that everything I'm usually smoking is full spectrum and it's not just terpinolene. Um, yeah, I might pick one of those out one of these times and say, oh, it's terpinolene or oh, it's pinene or I really like myrcene. You know what I mean? But do I? Or do I like myrcene plus pinene? Or do I like whatever the hell it is that combo is really make? I don't know the answer to that because my selections are different from each other. Like in my garden right now, I have Mac 1, and that's really different from Vortex, way different than Vortex, not only in the physical look of the plant, but the effects of the plant. And I can't say that I like one more than the other. One's for one reason, one's for another reason. So that's a really hard one for me. I don't pick just one. I think the medicine's in the mix. The medicine's in the fuller spectrum. It's not picking out one thing. And I don't think if I isolated just one thing that I would get as a medicinal effect as I do by mixing.
see, I agree with that to an extent. I do believe that full spectrum is a better medicine. However, I do find preferences like myself personally over the years. I've definitely been a fan of pinene and terpinolene for more daytime use stuff, limonene as well. During the nighttime, heavier myrcene and things like with esters and aldehydes like methylanthranolate, like the grapes, the purples, and the gassier stuff tends to be more of like my evening or pain relief type stuff, even if I need it in the morning, for example. Um, but it's more, I just asked which one you like in terms of like a preference for the conversation tonight. I am more coming at it from like we're trying to educate the audience to as many of the things as possible because some people do benefit from one or another or find preferences or uses specific to certain medicine. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but I've found a lot of strains are dominant in a few terpenes typically. That's why I think the term terpene profile has become popular. Although there still are. I talk to the people at the dispensaries whenever I go there and say like, how many people come in and say like, what's your highest THC? And it used to be like 9 out of 10. Now it's like 5 or 6, at least where I'm at. that's still too high. But at least like, 4 out of 10 people now might be saying, hey, what kind of terpene profile is there? Or like, what's your best sativa? What's your best indica? What's your best hybrid? Or what tastes like cherries? What tastes like lemons? What tastes like uh, gas or something? Like people have their different preferences there.
See, I'm exactly opposite. My brain is completely wired differently. If I'm going into a dispensary, we'll say I'm going for a concentrate. This happened to me recently. I did go to a dispensary for some concentrate. I went into a dispensary the first time I've ever been in there, and so I go in, give my license, walk in. They send me to a counter. I said, "Look, it's my first time in here, but it's not my first time with weed." I said, "I grow it. I don't need any flour. I need some concentrate." So they started showing me the concentrate, and I said, "Do you have anything live resin, live rosin?" They said, "Oh yeah," and they showed me what they had. And I'm looking at it, and I'm not looking at it for color. Color matters a little bit to me, I guess. But I'm looking at it how I'm looking at the consistency. And most people are looking probably for like a batter consistency, or maybe they're like the diamonds and sauce. But for me, I want something that's a little bit on the waterier side of things than the dry side of things, because to me, that tells me it has terpenes in it. I don't want the shit that's super dry looking fucking I don't know what they call it, butter.
Butter,
Crumble.
batter.
Because it might be 70, 80% cannabinoids, but that means there's no room for terpenes, man. So I kind of would rather have a little bit of everything than a lot of bit of one thing. And so that's what I'm looking for. I'm serious about it. I really do look for that full spectrum. If it's all isolates and shit, I try to get a couple and mix them to get that full spectrum. It's not, I really haven't found any real one thing that I can take. CBG, I have isolates available to me that I can take and try, even in gummy form, make it real easy. But it's like I haven't found one thing that I can take is really great. It's always a combo with other things.
I'm with you there, especially because as somebody who likes CBN as part of a fuller spectrum, I've found it's very effective if I make like a high CBN RSO. And again, I'm not even testing the stuff, but I'm assuming like if you leave it on a 200-degree hot plate for, you know, 72 hours or 100 hours or whatever it is until it's like pitch black and has to be mixed with some different oil to even be syringed, that some of that THC is going to be converted to, or THCA is going to be converted to THC and then CBN ultimately. I haven't lab tested anything still to this day. Like I've found stuff a little bit more expensive than what Spartan was quoting earlier in terms of test costs. And it was more just like my grow is so small that if I have to send, I don't know, 10 grams an ounce, however much off, it's like I would rather just smoke that myself or gift it to a friend so that they could smoke that. And then we could all just talk about what it tasted like or how it made us feel. And so the testing aspect, I think, is like not necessary. And I think it can actually lead to a chase of, in the case of like THC, a blind pursuit of THC. I smoked stuff that was tested at 45%. I've showed it on the show in the past, North Country Farm or something. It was like a wedding cake. I went and bought it specifically because it said 45%. I was like, all right, I just got to try this 45% shit. First of all, that's like, they definitely took advantage of like the plus or minus 10%. So it's probably like 41%. And then they add another 4.5% onto it or 4.1% onto it. So now it's 45. But even then they were like, no, we wanted it to get retested. We told them like that's too high. No one's gonna believe it. No one's gonna buy it. Well, I bought it, I smoked it, and it was like definitely not one of the better wedding cake samples I've come across. It was like a 7 or 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10. Like it didn't get me super high, it didn't have any crazy effects. And like I've also smoked distillate. I've also taken dabs of, distillate powder. I've also put THC powder on top of my bowl and had it be like ruining to the flavor and like the extra elevation, almost like for the lack of good quality burn that you would have just gotten off of like a good flour or like a bubble hash. It was just like never worth it. Like I've had at least a half, near 50, not 100, but like at least 50 experiences with concentrates that were isolated into a raw thing. THCA, CBN, CBG, even THCV, which I'm a huge fan of. Um, Isolated, I just feel like it's not as beneficial. I think that the more keys you start unlocking doors to, the better your cannabinoid system's gonna work. So, like, if you have this big giant house and there's 100 doors and you want to let everything in, you open up all the doors and let everything in at the same time. Don't just like open one door and try and spray a fire hose of just THC down into that system. It's like there's better ways to permeate the system than, all going into that one same door. And I think that's kind of how the entourage effect works and how multiple cannabinoids work within the system to really fully stimulate the endocannabinoid system. So I'm not really trying to focus on not doing that. I love full spectrum stuff as much as the next person, but I think the more we focus on individual terpenes, the more we'll have pheno hunters starting to look and say, oh, well, I do like X, Y, or Z, or this one thing, it just smelled so crazy. Like the Jack the Ripper I had, it tasted like lemon heads candy to me, and like actual fucking so sugary, like it was like lemon heads, like different than this lemon Italian ice, different than a lemon that I get off the tree down the street growing in beautiful San Diego. Um, they all have their very distinct little notes and features. So I love that pheno hunters will be out there looking for the lemon Italian ice pheno, and they'll be looking for the lemon heads phenos, and they'll be looking for the different. Even there's like funky lemon. I've had like funky skunky lemons, usually in that like lemon haze kind of thing. But yeah, getting off the lemon side of things, maybe more into terpinolene since we did
I,
mention it.
I was just gonna say I don't have any favorite terps. I just like unique, like that. The turmeric was just like I never smelled it before again. Like something that had a funk smell that was totally different and unique. And if there's like the high too, that Ronberry by cheese. I mean, the just straight up Ronberry. I got seed from somewhere. That shit. When I got high on that, it was a freaky freaking high, man. Yeah, it was really different. But also just potent terps get me going because even if it's like, I mean, I pretty much like them all, but I would say the Agent Orange is almost like astringent, man. You open up the mason jar, get your nose in there, your eyes, yeah, it hurt a little bit. So, like, yeah, I like it when they're super strong, and it's always great when
I think a better
you
question is we can narrow it down better to one, maybe two strains. If you can say, is there a terp profile you've tried that you didn't like?
right.
You know,
No,
for
I
me,
pretty
I can only think
much
of one recent one, Dirty Taxi, and that's well named.
right, right.
It tasted like a dirty fucking taxi,
Yeah,
man.
but some
It's like
people like that dirtiness, like the
in your
bo,
mouth?
like
You want that in
bo.
your
I've had
mouth?
bo, dude. And that's like I tell everyone, man. I remember freaking my buddy was sauteing onions in the kitchen, bro. It smelled like the fucking high school basketball after basketball practice gym locker room, dude. Just rank body odor, dude. And I know that I had like weed like that at least once. And yeah, I'm not interested in that at all ever. No.
That stuff certainly exists. I
Yeah.
actually don't mind smoking that. The body odor type stuff, the what Spartan's describing, like the dirty taxi sounds a little less appealing, but I also like chemi, gassy, really nasty kind of funk sometimes. So there's a strain called Dumpster that was pretty big in Ohio, and true to the name, kind of tastes dumpster-esque. It's not you get like some almost dead carcass terps off that shit, and not appealing to smell. But that's a rose-colored glasses one, I think, because when I was getting that, admittedly, I was maybe smoking like just on the weekend, like wait the whole week and then like Friday night light up and you get high as fuck. So you think it's great, but your tolerance is super low. So fucking Mexican brick probably would have got me super lit back then. So I'm not gonna stand on the quality of dumpster. I will stand on the quality of OG and Chem. And I think Gorilla Glue has been a really nice middle ground for that because it's got elements of both, but it has a much better flavor.
I would say GMO, throw that in there too. It's not a flavor I enjoyed, but the high is so good that I will smoke it. It's just a little too much funk for me. In fact, I remember
It's grown
smoking.
on me. It's like an acquired funk.
I can remember I smoked a clean bong too, damn it. Smoked a bowl of GMO and it was so garlicky in there. Yeah, it's so garlicky. Hey, that is a nice clean bowl. Nice. Um, and then I said, okay, that was fucking a nice hit, but wow, that's too much garlic for me or whatever. So I dumped out the ashes And I put a whole different fucking strain, a whole fucking different strain in that bitch and hit it. And all I tasted was garlic. I'm like, what in the fuck?
It stained your bong and your palate.
Yeah, dude.
It's intense. Garlic is one that does that even in food. If you put a little too much garlic in it, like people that don't like garlic will just they will take like one bite and be like, no, like but like send this back. I need to get something with
And I
no
love
garlic or
garlic. I
less.
love it.
And I love it too. And it, funny enough, I didn't when I was a kid. That was one that grew on me. Like certain foods when I was younger,
Yeah.
I didn't like, but I do think your palate changes and develops, and there's sort of acquired tastes. I've grown to love coffee and espresso, but I also think I was exposed to really shitty coffee for a really long time and not realizing how shitty the coffee was, and uh, so that was a factor for sure. Also with cannabis, like I thought the beasters I was getting from Canada were the shit because they were like a step up from the Mexican brick. But it was like being dry sifted and like fucking sold to us stupid high school kids for way too much. And when you started coming across like the AAA or like the Cali Buds, like I dated this girl whose brother fucking would drive 10 pounds back from California every couple weeks. And he moved it pretty quick. But man, that stuff was a different level. Like you pay 60, 65 for the eighth of that versus 50 for the eighth of Beasters or, 10 to 20 for the Mexican brick or whatever. And so it was easy for me to choose. I always at least got the Beasters because I heard rumor slash now found out it's true. Like the fucking pesticides and shit they were spraying on like paraquat in the in Mexico for a certain period, and still to the same certain areas. Be careful what you smoke. Um, Even if it's not paraquat, fucking Eagle 20, right? That shit turns into uh fucking hydrogen cyanide, I think, when it's converted. So
Well, that stuff's so,
myclobutanol.
that's the terrifying stuff about how that's systemic. You don't even know you got it. You get a clone from a buddy who used it. Well, hell, you get it from a clone from a buddy who never used Eagle 20, but he got it from a clone that somebody did use Eagle 20. So, you're two people removed, don't even know you have that shit, but you
20
have that
people
shit.
removed sometimes. It's like it's
Yeah.
crazy. Subcool got it from somebody who got it from somebody who got it from somebody, like it was multiple generations removed, but it's one of those nasty things. And like intuitively it doesn't make sense to us. I feel like thinking about something getting hit by a chemical and it just sticking with it, but it almost has to be thought about like an STD of a plant, it's like it sticks with that motherfucker. As soon as it gets hit, it carries. It looks pretty nice. Not that I care too much about the color, but the consistency looked pretty good.
Yeah, but this is some of the stuff I picked up at that dispensary I was talking about. This is Jack Herrera.
Fuck yeah. I love me
Jack
some.
Terror, like Jack Terror. It rhymes with terror, folks.
Right. I always fuck that up. It's hard to say. It's
It
harder to
is.
say.
I looked it up because I wanted to be right. And the way I looked it up was I did a search and I said, I need a search of Jack Herrera pronouncing his name. And and I ended up running across the thing where somebody was talking about Jack and was saying that he always joked that his name rhymed with terror. So that was his favorite joke was Jack Jack Herrera like Jack Terror. So I think that's a good way to remember it.
Everyone who is around him, from what I've found, the secondhand sources all state the same. He said that his son even is still now in the game, and will correctly, I think, confirm that is their pronunciation. But like lots of other things people mispronounce, it'll still continue to get messed up as much as we try. Uh, that's just part of the game, I guess, when you got a messed up name. No, not messed up, but difficult to pronounce, I guess, for some people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Dude.
but he's a good fucking activist for cannabis. He did a lot for us, for sure.
Oh yeah. So I just moved to Pennsylvania recently, and I don't know if you guys know these supermarkets called it's called Weiss, but it's spelled Weis. All right. So I call it Weiss, and I until the day I die, I'm calling it Weiss because like nobody introduced me to the store, and when I saw the sign, I'm like, oh, Weiss. So I just called it that. So a couple times, even since I've been here, they're like, "You going where?" I'm like, "I'm going to Weiss." They're like, "What the hell is that?" I'm like, "Oh, you guys call it Weiss because yeah, it's spelled Weis." So yeah, that's my little thing there. And yeah, I have a whole bunch of them here in Pennsylvania where I like hunting. We have Hunting Don. It's the name of a town here. But yeah, and like we had one in on Long Island called Huntington, Huntington. Like I can't even say it now, but they call it Huntington. I call it Hunting Don, and they call it Huntington. You know what I mean? I can't even do it the right way, but it's interesting how like yeah, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but semantics is very important. I like being a lawyer. Actually, I may as well, man. This is adult show. We curse and all that. So this is what I tell people. If you're married and you have sex with somebody else, but you wear a condom, you can truthfully say, I did not have sex with another woman. You had sex with that condom. And it's legit. And under oath, if you got a lie detector test and you believe it, then that's true too. So you'd be all right. So if you ever need a lawyer, I'm not, I didn't pass the bar yet, but I'll take care of you and get you out of trouble.
That's about as good as my cousin Vinny.
There you go. The Utes.
Oh, Tal, I'm not sure about that logic, but I'll let you cling on to that, and I'll still love you otherwise.
Oh yeah, and I would never cheat on your wife. I recommend never cheating on any woman unless you find out they cheated on you, and then you have at it. But yeah,
At that point, you just go your separate directions. But
yeah, we're
getting
getting way
back
off
on,
track. I apologize. Let's talk more about
I
the good smelling parts of weed.
don't think any of us are claiming relationship experts. So don't
that's what the people come for, actually. But no, the
You never
question I was
know. The
going to
Lord
follow up
works
with,
mysterious ways. Maybe someone needed that information.
everything happens for a reason, I guess, right, Tal? But Spartan, we were talking a little bit about Mother's Day and mother plants. What are some of the terps coming out of your plants that you've got mothers of going on right now? You've got quite a handful over there.
got a bunch of plants, but I don't think any of them. I don't really keep mother plants. I just take clones as they get too tall and reset them, so they'll always stay pretty small. But yeah, I just got mostly vortex crosses going right now. I've got some of my bliss bud going. And I have what else? Oh, some
How's the flavor in
smoking.
the Bliss Bud developed? Because I know that your project was more based on effect than flavor.
Yeah, so I haven't. I'm still hunting. So I've got the my keeper strain is like the bliss bud number like fucking 3 or something like that. But I found like 4 or 5 more seeds. So I'm hunting more of those against what I've already got as my keeper to see if I like it better or worse. Also, I'm keeping my fingers crossed for a male, but um, so far I haven't, obviously it's too early to tell, but I've got two of those going, and I think I have 3 more seeds that I can pop after that. Once I exhaust all those seeds and I've fully hunted the bliss bud, then I'll move forward with it more or mix it with more. There's Emily's doing a project with she hit some of my old vortex pollen from the Project V project and that I had in the freezer. She hit that to Mac 1 and a bliss bud in a flower tent right now. So it's really old pollen. It might not be very viable, and Mac 1's hard to get to pollinate anyway. So I'll be surprised to get too many seeds out of the Mac 1 at all, but maybe we get a few out of the other one. It'll be cool to see.
What's the number three Bliss Bud like that you're hanging on to right now, kind of as your keeper?
It's kind of like a sour diesel heavy is what I would call it. With it really is like if you look at the genetics on it, one side is sour diesel, so that's one side, and then the other side it's got sour diesel in it, but it's like a lot of things. So it's a pineapple tie from 2020 Mendocino, pineapple tie across the sour strawberry from 2020 Mendocino. That sour strawberry has sour diesel in it, so it's almost like a lot of sour diesel already in the genetics anyway. But it's not like as far as when it grows, it's not. Um, I was almost going to say not modernly attractive as far as the growth pattern and stuff, the way the buds, but it kind of is for washing. I have to wash it, honestly. It's never been washed, and that's something I need to do. I always love to just smoke it, but it's got more of an open bud structure. It gets a little bit airier. It gets these big, you get a big bud like that that weighs as much as, a bud like this because it's just this big. It's
Longer
got
open
that.
cola.
Yeah, and it's got that sour diesel. It's not very sour in the smoke. It's just got that, I guess, more diesely smell to it. Um, I don't get any pineapple out of it, like from the pineapple tie or whatever, but there is that little bit lasting. I don't know if it's beta caryophyllene or something, but that little like
Spiciness.
spiciness note, yeah, hit in it as well. So, and it's a very, if I had to describe the high, it would sativa like high. So it would be like a uplifting strain, make you happy kind of a thing. But definitely on the diesely side of things.
Sounds good. That's a, I guess, good note to maybe touch on some beta caryophyllene strains. One that I love, it's kind of a mix of beta caryophyllene and myrcene, is the Forum Cut Girl Scout cookie. But there's just a lot more going on in there. There's also some gas, which I think comes out of aldehydes, maybe esters. But it always, because I bought that from the legal market for years and years, and a couple of years back in medical, I think for a year or two they made everybody do terpene tests, or a lot of brands were just pushing it. So I was seeing that a lot, and it was just like one of the best things for my arthritis in my hands. So whenever I'd buy that, I was like, oh, it's got myrcene and beta caryophyllene. It's like maybe those two benefit my arthritis. And I think that there are like arthritis creams that actually use beta caryophyllene, like for topicals and stuff. So I think it has anti-inflammatory effects even on a physical um, topical application front, which funny enough, I think a lot of these things that work topically also, I guess maybe logically it makes sense. If it works on your skin, then it'll work if you like inhale it into your lungs. But maybe that isn't logical, but it
Well, they
does
say that your
tend to work
biggest
that way a lot of
organ
the
is your
time.
skin, right? Isn't your biggest
Yeah,
organ
it's your
your
biggest
skin?
organ, right? And your lungs are an organ, and it's all about getting into your bloodstream. And I think your lungs are better at getting things past the blood-brain barrier and stuff, and just
Yeah.
more rapidly accepting it into your system. But um, I've found that there's benefits. I've got some shout out to old hippie Medibles, Ty Sticks buddy I met when I was over in Vegas. I've still got their little salve that I've been using whenever I feel a little bit of pain, either in my fingers or ankle or back or shoulder, whatever it is. Rub a little bit of that stuff on there. It smells good, and the pain starts instantly kind of melting away. So, and it only continues to get better with time. So, I'm a huge believer in cannabis topicals, even the bath bombs. Like I know Epsom salt works on its own, but if you get a little THC or CBD bath bomb or a mixture of both, I think even better. They're usually not that expensive. Hopefully, if they are expensive, then maybe just get yourself some Epsom salt and then self-infuse with like some CBD oil or something as you pour your bath or something. But man, I feel like $1 million when I get out of a nice hot Epsom salt infused THC CBD bath. And yeah, I think like you're saying, like your skin is one of your biggest organs. You're absorbing it. I mean, I didn't go head under, but like neck to your toe, and it's definitely even just your skin. Like you can feel the softness and the exfoliation and all the other benefits that a normal Epsom salt bath would give you. But usually do them after kind of like working festivals and stuff. I'm on my feet a lot, moving a lot of shit around, get kind of sore and achy. And man, is it nice to unwind after a long day to have a nice joint and then Epsom salt bath.
Yeah, I love it too, man. And I feel like when I come out, like you're saying, it's soft, but I feel like puffy, like I'm the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man or whatever. And I'm just like, ah, I feel so good. I'm all fluffed up.
It is, man. It's a wonderful feeling. I'm not too masculine to admit that I love myself a good bath. My wife is probably we have a tiny tub here at our house, so it's like just enough to sit down in. But when we look at a new place, she's like always looking, we need a big bath. Or whenever we're on vacation, we try to find nice big tubs that we could both fit in, or they have like jacuzzi style tubs some places, and it's they call her a tub vacationer, tub tourist. So she likes to find hotels and Airbnbs or whatever verbos that have good tub action. And I do think that the cannabis crossover is something that a lot of people underestimate. And whether it's a topical like something like this or something like Skillo makes, many great people in the industry, I haven't found too many bad ones. I think a lot of people there's kind of a common knowledge out there among people that are in that space that realize cannabis is great, but it benefits from being mixed with lavender and peppermint and eucalyptus and,
Capsaicin.
frankincense, capsaicin. Yeah, I mean, there's so many medicinal or, health benefits out there in other plants in nature that yeah, it's like I like smelling this just like I like smelling a jar of weed. It's pleasant. It makes me happy, even just popping it open. Plus, it's a nice little jar for as small as it was. One of those little kind of clasp mason jar style. Gotta.
Plus, you can feel good. Somebody made that with real whole ingredients. It's not some fucking preservatives and dyes and just bullshit added to sell it. That's I really feel good about that too. So I love like the little events here they have in Michigan. I'm sure they have them everywhere, but my experience is in Michigan, where you can go to these little craft affairs and like Gems and Genetics, which is coming up for me. Uh, and find these little people that are doing, in their regular house. It's not some big corporation making a paint sub that it was passed down to them maybe by their mother and grandmother, and fucking they have the whole story, and they're the ones making it, and they'll sit there and talk to you about it. That's, I think, infinitely worth more than what you go to the store and find on a package that's all marketing just to try to sell it to you. I know they're probably trying to sell it to you too, but that they have the history and they can answer your questions. That's powerful. They can tell you exactly what's in it. You don't have to worry about any mystery ingredients. That kind of stuff makes me feel good to support people like that.
I love hearing stuff's made in a sink or a bathtub or in a garage. Apple started in a garage. Amazon started in a garage. These big
Well, it depends.
multi-billion,
If it's food, I don't know about a bathtub.
if it's sterilized. There are people that use them, shockingly enough, for certain recipes and certain things. But I think they're like dedicated cooking tubs in some situations. But it is like a
Prison
actual
wine.
prison wine. There you go.
Yeah.
But I mean, for a large batch of certain stuff, it's I've seen some pretty impressive operations on the home scale, whether it's baking or cooking or even just like the food truck model. You're doing a lot of work with not a lot of space. And some of those things do numbers, man. Those things turn into restaurants and businesses. Like so many of these food trucks go on. If you make good food, you eventually, hit the right margins and do it for long enough. They get themselves a little space set up and grow. So it's cool to see. There's a lot of that out here. I know it hasn't necessarily transitioned as much to I know like Hawaii does it, and I think some of the other spots on the West Coast. Do you guys have a lot of food trucks? I know like events and stuff. That's a more popular thing.
Say that again. They have what?
Food
I,
trucks.
Food truck. Yeah, they do have food trucks. There's a whole regulated industry too. But yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about food trucks. I'm usually excited to see food trucks, but my body the next day is not always excited after a food truck. So it's really hit or miss.
yeah,
That's a good point.
I don't eat the dirty water dogs. When I was in New York, I wouldn't eat, yeah, a
I
lot
don't
of
know,
that
man.
stuff.
I've gotten sicker from big chain restaurants than I have
Oh
from hole in the
yeah.
walls, but that's just my luck, you
It's
know.
always a risk. Like it's like cannabis. If you don't grow it, if you don't prepare it yourself, you never know what you get. You guys seen that movie Waiting, right?
This is true.
All right. And Fight Club. There's many yeah, examples in me, and movies are just a reflection of reality, as we've seen.
I mean, there's homemade salsa that'll give you salmonella, and then there's homemade salsa that'll be the best shit that you've ever had in your whole
That'll
life.
give you super energy. Yes, that's true.
So it's a mixed bag. You got to really know the source. I think that it's good to get to know who's behind it, if possible, and support people that do the good work. You figure it out in time. If you do get sick from that truck, don't go back
Go
to them
back.
again.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't go back to that one.
Dude, I had a cool experience. Fucking Lady G and I were out somewhere semi recent. I don't even remember where it was, but we met somebody who was working security or like something at one of the events that we'd worked like a year plus ago. And they're like, I recognize you. You're with this so and so. And like she didn't recognize her at first. And then when my wife told me like where we had met this person, I like looked over and I was like, oh yeah, she was the one working security. We watched fucking Revolution warm up, like their sound check or whatever. And we were like smoking joints. And this lady was like working security and we're like, you want to join? She's like, yeah. Like fucking came over, started smoking with us. But we like ran into them randomly recently. So shout out to that person. And it's a
That's
small
super
world, man.
awesome, dude. I love that.
It's like a long time later, but I don't know. I used to think my memory was not that great, but I think some for certain things it clicks, especially when you have an experience. Like when I have a human to human, I might not remember your name, I'll remember your whole background, your life story, but I'll forget your fucking name. But I will remember the experience. Like I did just tell you guys the whole fucking thing, but I couldn't tell you their name. However, it was nice just to recognize them, and we had a little chat, and I think they maybe even reintroduced my wife would probably know her name, but we it's good to be able to reconnect with people and even
I'm the
just small
same
stuff like
way.
that.
I'm the same way, bro. And it makes it even more hard when you're out at a cannabis event and people recognize you and know everything about you. And you can't remember, you want so hard to remember this person's name, right? And then they come up to you the next year or and say, hey, remember we were here? Yes. Yeah, yeah. I hate I tried so hard, and it's not like my memory's terrible, but I meet a few people, and I remember a lot of them, but it's hard sometimes to just, remember everybody's name, and that's one I've always struggled with names. I always try to have to do little rhymes in my head to try to remember somebody. There's always a struggle for me, and I don't know why, and I don't think it definitely doesn't have to do with cannabis because it happened before I even started ever smoking cannabis. I always
I'll
had
say I'll
trouble.
blame the head injuries, but I won't blame the cannabis.
Yeah, exactly.
I've taken a
Cannabis
few
never
shots to
helps.
the
I will
dome.
say, I will say, cannabis never helps me remember things. That's for sure.
I think pining is the exception for me. I think sometimes I'm like a little sharper on that than I am if I'm not using. But in terms of memory, like remembering stuff, and that's one thing that, funny enough, it was shown later on through. And part of the reason I do think it is interesting to focus on the individual elements is like there's a lot of research behind aromatherapy, and like they've been studying pinene from pine needles for 50, 100, maybe 1,000 years if you go back to certain countries or whatever.
Right, and pine needles have been used in herbal medicine for a long time as well.
Exactly. And so there's some of these benefits that are pretty well demonstrated that we can get within cannabis, which I think is like all the better, right? It's like the THC, I think, is really why 80% of us are here, you know? But the other stuff in there is what makes the us keep coming back. It's what makes us want to try different strains and grow different strains and hold on to unique stuff. And I think all the different terpenes kind of have a special place in my heart. Like you were saying, it's hard to pick any
Yeah.
one. I do know that I have a maybe tendency to reach towards certain ones, and if I am in a shop and trying something, it tends to be more in that Jack Herer or Durban Poison or uh, whatever range side of things.
Yeah.
But
If I saw Northern Lights #5 or AK-47 or even a green crack, I would pick that shit up just for nostalgia's sake. I'd pick
I
that
had an
shit up.
NL5 recently. Got it
Yeah.
exactly for the reason. Yeah, and it was good. It was only like I want to say it was like between like 12 and 18%. It was super low,
Who
and no one
cares?
was buying it for that reason. I bought it and fucking enjoyed it. It was great.
I used to buy Durban all the time from Winewood Organics, and that was only, I think, tested 17 or 19% THC, but I love that shit, man.
That's how this J1 I just got. I think it was 17, maybe 19%, but it was fire. It was so good.
Yeah.
Tasted good, smoked good, and it's like shit. I didn't even ask the percentage. That was the funniest thing. Like I didn't even realize till I got home later and was like
And
smoking. I was
that's
like,
the
"Oh shit, this
beauty.
is 17."
That's the beauty of homegrow, though, right? Because we don't have access to the testing. It can't drive us. We have to use our other senses. We have to use, do you like the flavor? Do you like the smoke? Do you like the effect? It forces us to be like, no, we're not letting the fucking computer tell us. We're not letting the fucking, report tell us what's good. We have to decide what's good. And I think that's so much better.
That's why our shit is better, a big part. On top of the passion,
Yeah,
on top of the
yeah.
craft, it's because we're growing better genetics. We always tell new growers it starts with good genetics. The big corporate people buy whatever cut is popular, all right, and they try to do their best with it. But it's like they're working with worse shit because they don't have the passion to go through and maybe pick out.
Or this I've seen a lot too, if they're worth their salt and they're pretty smart in the game, or maybe they used to be in the game. Either way, they're reaching out to the people at the home growers and be like, how much you want for that cut? And throw crazy money at them just to get that cut so they can have that. Because they know their competition don't have that shit. They can see it on the shelves. So I still see that going on too. And
Yeah, it's just
Michigan,
funny
that's
though, because
legal. Michigan,
the
that's legal for a
numbers,
caregiver to sell to the commercial side. That's the
as it
only
should be.
sale allowed. Yeah,
Hey,
I
make
think
them
it
some
should be
money.
open all the way.
It should be. I'm a big fan of like opening the floodgates in some regards, and especially in terms of cannabis. Let people grow as many as they want. Let the commercial grow as big as they want. Let the craft grow as big as they want. Just make it an even playing field. Don't
Well, I
make it
would
so the
say,
commercial can grow a million plants, but the fucking little guy can only grow six. Fuck that shit.
yeah, I would rather say, I would rather see in my dream world, right? I would rather see a world where the dispensary could buy cannabis from anywhere as long as it passed testing. I would like testing to be free or close to free and have it state run, and the state can definitely fund a fucking lab with all the goddamn money that they take in taxes. So they could do that, and there's no more fucking. Then the lab is independent, or at least somewhat independent. At least it's not beholden. It's not a customer of the
Way
farm.
more independent.
Yeah, that it's not like a customer beholden to try to please the grows. It's this is your fucking choice. You get it tested at the government facilities, and that's what you have to fucking pass.
I
No more
think we're up to
shenanigans.
80 to 90% of our original labs have lost their licenses.
Yeah,
There's like
yeah,
10
it's,
to
it's
20% of the original
because
ones are left. That's
the
crazy.
whole system sets it up for failure to begin with. When you're saying, okay, the lab, your customer is the grow. So eventually you want to please that customer. You want to please that customer. You want to give them a good test result.
I will
And
say
then
I
you have
love
other labs doing the same shit. Now you have a next guy saying, you know what, fuck, I'm gonna fudge a number and say I'll get a little bit better test result if you come test with me. It's ridiculous. Have one testing so you can't have that shit.
I I do love the USA, but we have some perverse incentives, and cannabis isn't the only place. There are other examples of shit like
It's
this.
like the FDA is funded by the pharmaceutical companies.
That's the example I was thinking
Yeah,
of.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's
It's
I have a
insane.
psychology degree, and when I learned about how the DSM was written, like the DSM-4, where the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which is just what they use to diagnose mental illnesses, from number 4 to number 5, the percentage of funding from people that were had a funding from pharmaceutical went from 51 to 76%. And the NIH, National Institute of Health, literally rejected the DSM-5 because it had brought in so many different diagnoses, so broad so that they could over essentially prescribe more medication. So everybody, you and I could all qualify for certain diagnoses now. If you don't make good eye contact with me for a second, now you've qualified for a social diagnosis. If you don't speak perfectly, if you don't write perfectly, it's so easy to fall onto a spectrum when everything's a spectrum and the things are not necessarily set in stone.
As long as
So
as long as they throw cannabis in on a treatment for that, I'm okay. We'll keep it that way. And just let me claim that on my cannabis card, and that's cool. Hey, I can't look at you, bro. Just give me a cannabis card. That's all I'm here
I
for.
remember when it used to be like just like five, like cancer, that like certain
Oh,
medic.
that's tough. Yeah, it's still there's a list here too. It's getting bigger every year. I think it's not every year, but I think it's every 2 or 3 years. You can petition to get a new disease or illness to be covered on the medical side so that it can be prescribed for it. And they've added autism to it, which was a big win. Um,
Hey, shout out to UCSD. They're part of the reason. There was some independent individual who threw a few $1 million to UC San Diego to study autism and the relation to cannabis specifically. In this case, it was a synthetic CBD, which wasn't the best study, but at least it got the ball rolling. And it was some of the early legal study that was being done in the US. So that's cool to take the hats off when we can to people in the US because so little of it's actually being done and done well.
it's
Not that
cool
that was
to, I
perfect, but
mean, I feel like a weed nerd, I guess, but it's cool to sit back and just watch it. We're sitting in history being made, man. You just watch it, do a little cannabis, news story search, and you see this stuff falling state by state by state. We're not seeing the other way. We're not seeing very many going backwards, Texas, but we're seeing a lot of places going the right way.
we're
Uh,
watching the world's biggest conspiracy unfold.
yeah, that too.
Cannabis is dangerous and evil. Before our eyes, it's being proven that it's not only is it not dangerous or evil, it's fucking very safe, effective, and it's something that benefits lots and lots of people. The people that it doesn't benefit are already very well established in their fields, and they want to maintain domination. And when a new thing comes along to threaten their power, in the case of like pharmaceutical versus cannabis, it was the original thing. Freaking Eli Lilly was one of the biggest pushers of cannabis until the 1930s, and prohibition began basically back then. And 1970s, it got even more strict, but now it's starting to get rolled back a little bit. And we're seeing lots of positive effects in lots of states. But like I said, just because those effects are positive for like the people's well-being, generally like lots of across the board benefits from like less DUIs, less people hospitalized for complications due to certain other harder drugs. It's a
And
net
that's
benefit.
one lens. I'm sorry to cut in, but that's one lens that isn't even looked through a lot with cannabis, and that's harm reduction. How many fucking lives are saved because you can go legally and get that and not have to get some? If you're going to go on the street anyway, why am I getting cannabis? That's not strong compared to some of this other shit. But if you can just legally walk in and get some relief with cannabis and not have to go out on the street and get something worse, that's probably laced with some shit. Man, I don't know how many lives that saved. That's never a number that you can even imagine to calculate, but I know it's there. You know what I mean? I've seen, an improvement.
Well, there was that strain marijuana, and I think about that sometimes. Strains that are named stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's like
nothing
heroin,
changed.
marijuana, but at the same time, I don't like the second half of that term, and I don't love the idea that it's being compared to a substance that I think does have lots of harm associated with it and abuse potential that's maybe more risky. However, if it can get one or 10 or 1,000 people to switch off a more dangerous opiate, especially now that there's like, not to be like a news organization like super opiates, but like fucking just the one that we know about, fentanyl, is dangerous. I've lost one of my best friends to it, and many people have lost friends, family, coworkers, kids to it. So it's the more people on cannabis, the less I would expect ODs from that or any other substance. And I don't know. I think we're
And then I think that's just a drop in the bucket because I think it's also like cannabis is unique and maybe it's not the only, but a very unique substance in that people use it for stress relief at the very least. And it brings people together that normally wouldn't even probably be comfortable hanging around each other. You know what I mean? You can see all shapes, sizes, creeds, religions, whatever you want to call it, races, whatever you want to look at. Standing in a circle, passing a joint, it don't matter. Everybody's one, and it's cool. And I've yet to see, yet in my fucking whole lifetime, yet to see a fight break out at a weed party. Yet to see it, man. I've seen it plenty of times at an alcohol party. I've seen it plenty. I see some crazy shit at some other kinds of parties, but yeah, I would be totally comfortable with yeah, the entire world, the adult world, uh, smoking cannabis over. I can't think of anything other substance. Maybe mushrooms might be a good contender, but that's even a little bit, I think, elevated as far as potential harm or not harm, but more
risk
respect than
profile.
cannabis. Yeah. Cannabis, you're not really leaving this earth.
Funny enough, mushrooms consistently rates lower on the harm scale whenever it's like evaluated versus all other drugs. But I think that's because the way that cannabis is cultivated and distributed historically um, was a lot more street crime associated with it. People getting shot, killed, robbed, etc. Where the mushroom community, I just feel like there was a lot less of that. It was less about the actual high and
Well,
more
it's
about the
demand. Yeah, it's
criminal
demand
under.
too, because traditionally it's not. Oh, now we're getting smarter with it, right? I'm not, I don't even want to say smarter. That's a terrible word, but we're doing micro doses, right? So that you don't really get the big strong trips. But back in the day, that's not what traditionally it was like. We're gonna do a big dose, and we're gonna go
The
on a
whole point. It was
journey.
like when what's his name said I didn't inhale, and Obama said I inhaled. I thought that was the point. It's like the reverse with mushrooms. Like back in the day, we used to take
It's like,
mega
hold on.
doses, like 3.5 or 5.5, like hero doses that would send you to another galaxy. And now everyone's like, I'm taking 0.35 or like 0.25, zero point 0.1.
Yeah. And so I think that when you go on those big hero dices, there's not a huge desire from the body or yourself, even mentally, to go and do that right. Turn around and go do that right again. But if you have some sore fucking feet after working in the factory for 12 fucking hours and you smoke a joint and they instantly feel better and you can relax and sleep, you're going to do that tomorrow too. And you're going to do it the next day and the next day. And so there's a demand there that builds up for that cannabis. I think that's why that's that way. I think
That's
that's
why
the
alcohol gets so pissed off. If they're not in the business, like Corona got in pretty big. I forget what name they were under, but like ABC or something, they put billions of dollars into some Canadian organizations or whatever when it first started popping off. And there's other ones. Pabst is getting into it in the actual infused beverage game, but also into cannabis generally. Big Tobacco's getting in on it. But the ones who aren't are kind of sitting on the side and like, oh fuck, there's a train rolling in to town right at them. Like this is our supply demand, and like certain people, if they stop drinking, which some people do, I'm one of them. I hardly ever drink at all. I'm like
same here.
completely. I grew up in the Midwest. I would have been a beer alcohol drinker my whole life.
Same here. My
Maybe
dad's an
now that
alcoholic.
maybe now that it's like legal in Ohio, they got medical, it's starting to allow some homegrown this and that. But from what I hear, it's still not a it's far from a perfect system, and it's still access is not great. So I'd still probably be hitting the booze if I lived there. and I hate to blame it on this, but the weather did fuck with me, the seasonal affective disorder type shit. I don't think I need it as much being in a place where it's sunnier and warmer and I get to be outside more. I like being out in nature and I didn't really partake in the winter sports as much. I didn't have like a snowmobile, wasn't a snowboarder or a skier. So like half my year was just like misery, like getting out and scraping off my car and fucking shoveling myself out and this and that. Like that was on top of, other things, lack of cannabis access and probably lots of access to alcohol and very little judgment on it. So it was very easy to hit the bottle or hit beer, drink beer, wine, whatever it is. Where if you smoked a little bit, it's like your whole family's like, "What? You need to go to rehab." That's how, at least how it was for me. And so, fuck, man, it's certainly different out here on the West Coast for sure in a lot of different ways. But I'm happy to see Ohio starting to gain more access and alcohol companies be damned. Like you guys can choose to get in or get out, or make better alcohol, make better products, make better ways to consume it so that maybe people don't get so hungover or it's not
Well,
so
that's what I'd
easy
love to
to
see.
wander into a DUI.
I would love to see like that kind of an industry. Well, even more so. Like you do see craft breweries, but they get bought out by big fucking conglomerates, and then they go away. But you don't see like home brewers get to put their their brews up against the craft. We'll put into air quotes the craft brews. So I would love to see that. I would love to see that for them, and I would love to see that for the on the cannabis side of things too. Why can't somebody in their own fucking time, you know? I'm not saying go crazy and have a billion plants as wonderful as that would be. I understand being mindful of your neighbors, but why can't you have, a pound that you can fucking bring into a local, dispo that will sell out in I guaranteed a week.
People argue safety, but you gave the perfect answer. Use that tax revenue, which would be an infinitesimally small percentage of it, by the way, because when it comes down to a government contract, hopefully they're not going to get extorted. They could say, hey, here's the 10 labs that we have right now. We'll go see what they're charging people. Even if we fix that rate, give them an extra 10, 20, 30% on top of it. As long as they're not charging you 10,000% more, uh, the hundreds of millions of dollars of tax revenue are going to cover the few $1,000s of home grow people that are going to send in a sample to get tested. And then if they want to do a pound and put it into the market, they have batches just like everybody else. You can test up to 10 pounds at a time on a single test. Just keep it to the same standard that you hold the commercial people to, and
Yeah,
then make it freely
absolutely.
available. And it gives people more access. But sadly, a lot of the time, I think our legislation is more incentivized by the dollars and cents, which usually comes from it's easier for us to collect uh, tax off of five big companies than 10,000 little guys. And they're worried because of our history and our backgrounds of being underground and unregulated and not paying taxes and doing things in cash, that a lot of the legacy market's not going to play ball necessarily. But
Well, my
that's kind of
argument would be that is I absolutely agree, and they're not going to play ball unless you give them an avenue to do so.
Yeah. Well, and it's also assuming guilt before you're even giving people a chance, which is fucked up. I think like if we
Yeah.
look at the alcohol prohibition, I always mention this, 1% tax for like the first several years because they wanted to stomp out the unregulated market, the black market. And now, like you said, I'm probably one of the exceptions, but like I brewed my own beer in high school because my buddy bought a kit before we were 21 so he could make beer for us. It was pretty dog shit because he like made it in his closet or under his bed or whatever so his parents wouldn't find out. It was a tiny little thing and probably didn't know what the fuck he was doing, but it got the job done, so to speak. But there are people out there. There is I think the craft brew market evolved out of the homebrew market, just like we're seeing now
Yeah.
with the craft cannabis market evolving out of the home grow market, whether it's Ivan at Jungle Boys or the CBX crew. They were legacy growers that grew into the market and figured out a way to make it within all the regulation. And I think right now it's like almost impossibly difficult for, at least in California, with all the regulations. And then you're battling against like the strongest legacy market of all time, potentially. Like unless we're like we go into like Afghanistan or like the Rift Mountains of Morocco or something like, or Mexico, like the entire country of it. But like when we're looking at the USA is a huge ass country, and we've got lots of people that are growing, regulated or unregulated. You know what I mean? And in California, it wasn't until 1996 that anybody had a chance to do it legal. So we've got, I don't know, three, four generations of people still here that are hanging around growing, and they're not gonna just disappear, you know? Like I know a lot of people with a lot of setups that aren't going anywhere. So eventually they'll die off, but like we're stuck in multiple generations still to go, and the legal market is slowly scraping along, and they'll raise the tax a little and then they'll lower it a little, they'll raise it a little, lower it. But it's like it needs to be like 1/10 of what it is now, not like 2% lower than 30. You know, oh, it went from 30 to 32 or 30 to 28. It's like they're missing the point. It's so hard to compete if you don't make it 1% or 5%. Like it needs to be really low. And if you make it 1%, you bring more people in, open up the licensing. One, you make money on the licensing, but two, 1% of 10 billion is better than, 32% of a million or whatever it is, you know? If you capture the entirety of the fucking market, which we're not even close to, we're going to bring in way more tax revenue, even on a much smaller percentage of it.
Yeah, they're fucking up out there in California. That's no doubt. It's
Big
kind
time.
of,
But
well, what's great about the 50 state model, like what we have, is the other states, hopefully, if they have intelligent people there, can look there and say, wow, we don't want to do that. Look how that's turned out. You know what I mean? So it gives us that incubators, 50 ways to try it and see who's got the best idea. Then hopefully, this is a big air quote, hopefully, that whoever's running the show there can make some sensible laws by seeing how others fail. Like we don't give up. Like I said, I was saying earlier, we're kind of watching history write itself right now. We're still at the infant stage of this, so there's going to be some self-correction for sure. But it is interesting to hear how each state does it and how each state approaches it, and then how does the market react and how does that affect everything?
it's a
Yeah, I
great
don't think
American experiment.
Yeah.
California ain't gonna wise up anytime soon.
No, it's not looking
Even
that
even
way.
if other states do awesome, they're not gonna change. They're
I
gonna
Well,
think
they
do
will.
something
I'll
even
Once
disagree.
worse.
I'll disagree to some extent because it's
I would say
already
they
starting
will
to
if they
happen.
start to fail. If it starts to hit the monies and it starts to fail, they
Well,
have to
no, they
change.
just upped the taxes because they weren't making enough money, which is gonna be deleterious to the overall income that they're gonna get in probably.
And then
Right? Am
they'll
I
get
not
voted
right?
out, and
Newsom,
then things will change.
yeah, Newsom just raised the taxes on cannabis so that they can make more money. But that's just going to force people to not go pay
To
the
be fair, he did.
dispensary.
To be fair, I don't think he raised anything. He just let the break expire.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
The long and short of it is, yeah, they don't. Well, Newsom doesn't learn from other states
He's not going to
No.
be
trying
around
or
forever. He's going to
yeah.
be trying to run for president soon, and I don't think he's going to even get reelected. I don't know if he's even going to run. The thing like
I
Spartan was
don't
saying
know,
is
dude. They tried to get rid of him a couple of years ago, and he
in
stuck
a
to
recall election,
yeah
which
recall.
there's
That's
a lot
hard. I
of
know.
I'll tell you this, Tal, I'm a lot more into the California politics
Than others, right?
than most people because I live here and I have for the
And
last decade.
right? So
Things are
you
moving the
know.
right direction in a
Okay.
lot of ways.
Well, I'm
Not to
glad to
like,
hear because yeah, I don't see
don't
it
confuse
out
that for
here.
like national stuff. Like I'm not talking about the president or the vice president, any of
Right.
that other shit. I'm
Just
talking about California,
California.
where I live, where I've seen
I don't know,
things
man. It's
change.
so bad with the last fires. There was no water to put out the fire. What I like that just blows my
That there
mind.
is
But let's
issues. Los Angeles
I'm
has
sorry.
issues for
Yeah.
sure, and we could, talk about California all day
Right.
long.
But
However,
hopefully,
they're making changes.
do you think
People are
the
getting voted out. People are being replaced by more
right,
moderate individuals. Even if they're on the same team, they're more towards the middle.
right.
And those
If
people that are
well
more towards the middle
with
are
the
not.
cannabis, they don't see the numbers getting better, you think they'll change it for real?
Well, some do and some. So here's the thing, like even down to the city level, they can decide who
Decide
gets
right.
permitted, who gets
Overturn.
taxed.
Yeah.
And so like Vista versus Encinitas are two cities in North County. Encinitas was like, hey, we're not going to allow any cannabis industry because we want to wait and see. So they waited and see for like a year. Well, after that year happened, they saw Vista take in hundreds of millions of dollars. And a lot of that went to their tax revenue. A lot of that fixed the roads and built brand new apartments and beautified the city. It went from, it's more central, a little bit off the coast, but it improved a great deal. And then Encinitas slowly, they're like, oh shit, like that's a good idea, but like, how do we get it all approved and through? So like 1, 2, maybe 3 years later, they started finally getting shops, and now they're starting to see revenue, and they're fucking stoked about it. But I bet you they wish they hadn't sat on their fucking hands and basically said no to money like there was people gonna they're gonna operate regulated or unregulated. So it's like, do you want some of the taxes or none of them? Was really the option that people were dealing with. And so I thought it was kind of crazy that some cities would be like, we want none of them. We're not going to participate. So, um, but yeah, that comes down to each city. People can vote with their feet. I can literally up and move out of where I live. And not everybody has that option, but like it is ultimately, if you care enough, you can change your life that way.
You're seeing that in California with a lot of these even big names moving out. And that makes sense.
Companies,
It makes
people,
a lot of
etc.
sense. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see everything. I love
It's
it's interesting to me. I
to
love
bring it to
watching
the cannabis side of things
old
and get it more off of like the interior
California.
politics.
Yeah.
Um, I like what you were talking about is like we're seeing live, we're living the history. I remember when Colorado legalized, they were like the first, in my opinion, adult use market that was like fully opened up and said, "Hey, we're just gonna do fucking edibles and dabs and flower, and you could just go ham, do it all." Uh, they had regulations, they had testing. I think there was I'd say it was pretty open. I don't know the exact specifics, but it was fairly open. And then you have like Oregon, who is just like anybody who applies gets a license, grow as much as you want. And Oklahoma kind of took that model too, where California was more limited. So there's certainly discussions to be had about like how open should it be? Because I do think that Oregon, at least per their population, and maybe even Oklahoma, but there's a lot of exporting that was being done behind closed doors, let's be honest. But that aside, in the actual regulated markets, like if you grow 1 million pounds for your state and you're not allowed to export, and your population's 1 million people, and you have 100 million pounds, and they're only demanding 5 million pounds that year, you've got a 95 million pound overproduction, which can happen when you have people that are able to grow it hectares and hectares at a time. So it can really, like, I think we're seeing like $20 like ounces and stuff, like for a while up in Oregon. And it was hurting a lot of the farmers and growers and craft. Um, but there's an argument to be had. Like, that's the free market. That's what will happen. So I'm curious kind of where you guys feel like, how's Michigan fall in that line? Were you more open? Were you more regulated?
Well, that's it's hard to say. I think it's more open, honestly, still. There's more regulation, and unfortunately, there's been a different director of this. They call it the CRA here. That's the regulatory body here, and it's a cannabis regulatory agency. And the deputy director or whatever was, I don't know if it was an election thing or what the deal was, but it was switched, and now they've got, and this sounds terrible for me to be all bad on it, but an ex-police officer, ex-cop, yeah, who's the head of it now. And I'm like, oh, of course. And true to form, now he's been in there now for a good year or more. And true to form, just like you would expect from this. Um, he's, I'm starting to send out his goons, right? He sent out all of his inspectors, no notice, to do all these inspections to show people that they're not following the rules and they need to change their ways. And I'm not trying to take away, he's busted some people doing some fucked up shit that shouldn't have been doing. And I'm glad he caught them. But they're really nitpicking some other bullshit that's really stupid. And just kind of throwing their weight around like, well, I'm the new sheriff. Literally, I'm the new sheriff in town. So, as far as on the commercial side of things, it's getting tightened up as regulations on the regulation side of thing, I would say, at least enforcement. They're a little
Not that
bit.
I advocate for people cheating on policy, but it makes me just think like comparing it to food, any restaurant, if you have a health inspector come by, they come by like 24 to 48 hours, depending on your state, beforehand and say, "Hey, I'm the health inspector. I'm going to come by in 24 hours, 48 hours. Get your shit together because I'm going to be looking at everything." And a lot of restaurants have A health ratings that maybe wouldn't have otherwise if they didn't get that 20. If they showed up unannounced, a lot of those things would be lower than if they gave them 24 hours to go fucking, and a lot of restaurants do fucking basically shut it down, like clean all
I,
night long and get it tip top as clean as they fucking can. So I just feel like the same courtesies should be extended maybe to cannabis if we're going to do that in food.
They
Not to
normally do
say,
that. They normally do that in camps, but they also have the right to do surprise. They call them surprise inspections, and he just. And then you have the age old, and it's not just the cannabis industry; it's in every industry, especially in business, When you can't do better than your competitor, you tell on the next guy. You make false claims. There's a lot of that that goes to the CRA. Then they have to go investigate, and then that causes an investigation that might find that, oh, you had this pot doesn't have a this plant here doesn't have a tag in it. What are you doing? You know, it's just stupid, nitpicky. But then they impose like a $10,000 fine on something like pretty petty, and it almost feels like they're just funding something. But as
That's
far as
something I dislike about business in general is what I'd consider anti-competitive business practices. It's done in a lot of businesses, but I've
uh,
seen it a lot in the cannabis space now because there's a lot of land grabbing going on. People want to get their brand out and get as much of the market share as possible. So they're doing shady ass shit to other brands to make it impossible or very difficult for them to operate. So it's unfortunate to hear, but it's good to expose it because letting people know what they're up against, like you want to have a good lawyer on your team or
oh,
lawyers.
absolutely. Have a lawyer before you even fill out the paperwork for the initial license and have them look at it too, because damn,
Don't chat GPT that shit. You want a
no.
real ass local lawyer who knows your state laws and your local laws that has relationships, I hate to say it,
In
with
cannabis
local
law,
judges
if it's
and cannabis
Michigan
law.
or if it's an established market, get one. They have lawyers for sure. I can name a few
One
here.
used to come on a podcast. He's been on Eagles podcast, the Michigan cannabis attorney or something.
Abel, Matthew Abel. Yeah.
Cool dude.
Hell yeah. He's a super cool dude. Um, and he's been a lot with the activists too and helping write laws and yeah, super cool dude. But yeah, if that's I run into trouble, that's the guy I want helping me out.
That's how I feel like the Pop Brothers at law out here. We've got these guys,
Yeah.
the Shut the Fuck Up Fridays.
Yep.
They represent people for cannabis defenses, and I definitely know if I get pulled over and have a hostile person coming, what to not say, essentially. No, you're right. It's gotten me out. Just I was at work one time with a special needs kid. Like I finished a hike. I was just trying to get home, and this cop pulls up, starts questioning me, and like I wasn't even illegally parked. There was no parking sign or anything. It was just like this trail. I had like a little pull in, and so I parked there like I had a bunch of times before, and just to be off the street. Which coincidentally, like months later when I started parking on the street, I got fucking my car totaled because somebody wasn't paying attention and fucking slammed into my car. So instead of being on this little safe pull in, anyway, it was like during the pandemic, I had to like put my mask on. I was like breathing heavy. I just walked up a fucking hill. I was hiking. I was like, trying to get, I had like 5, 10 minutes to get this guy back to his house. And the guy, cops questioned me. Like, I give him my ID and I was like, am I being detained or am I free to go? And he's like, you're not being detained. And I was like, all right, well, no disrespect, but like, I don't have time to answer any more questions. I got to take my buddy home, drop him off. And so I ended up being able, that was like, it felt like the magic. He was like, question, question, question. And when I finally remembered, I was like, all right, that's the magic word, and
Yeah.
I wasn't doing anything wrong. I'd firmly proven that. I give him, why I was there, what I was doing. And turned out, unfortunately, like a week earlier, somebody had gotten shanked on that trail. Not to, I don't want to draw too much negative YouTube attention from the algorithm, but somebody used a bladed weapon on some unsuspecting jogger or whatever and
Damn.
took their life. So I think they were trying to investigate like anybody on that trail or around that trail. And so good on that officer for, trying to do his job. But I was not associated with that at all and didn't even hear about it until maybe a week or two later. And so it was just one of those things where I get where he's coming from now in retrospect, but I was just trying to get the fuck out of there and go home.
So
And
apparently you look like a murderer, Jack. What the hell?
I will say the young man I work with was still is special needs, and he's not very aware of like his facial expression, so he makes kind of scary faces.
Oh, okay.
And so even more so the reason. It's hard to explain all this stuff though in the heat of the moment. Officers got a gun on their
And you're in
hip
a
and
hurry too. You're not like, I don't
yeah.
have time for this, dude.
And like I knew I
De-escalate,
was
de-escalate.
legally in the right too. But it is, I will say it's nice to have, if you can afford to, an attorney on retainer or some service that will afford you one if you need one.
That's the scary thing too, is you're always, you get one phone call, right? But who remembers phone numbers anymore? God damn.
And a lot of the time they'll take your phone, so
Yeah.
don't rely on
You're
that
just sitting there
necessarily.
like, who the fuck am I gonna call? What the hell?
That's why a lot of the lawyers still use like jingles and stuff, But like
That's what I need to do. I need to just memorize a lawyer's phone number. That's what I need to do. I gotta put that in my list of things to do.
hopefully you never have to
Try
use it.
1-800-lawyer.
There you go, 1-800 lawyer. That's a good
Yeah, I
one.
tried. If I was like, yeah, didn't have any other numbers.
legal stuff aside, I think that is one part of the cannabis game that can be a headache, and avoiding that stuff is worthwhile if you're in a state that allows, I think, some sort of template for you to do it legally. It might be getting a medical card, it might be getting a permit to grow or license to grow or paying some tax or regulation or something. But that's a whole lot better than, the fines or regulations or jail time or loss of life that could happen if you try to do it
One
the alternative ways.
one dope thing I found out here in Michigan recently is that they're starting to put your whatever you use on your driver's license photo on your medical cannabis cards, so that now that's a state issued photo ID. So it's another form of ID. And like things that require two things of ID, I'm always going to show that card like boom, boom, this is my fucking photo ID.
That's nice, to be honest. I've passport's usually my second one, but that one expired recently. I got another one though. I won't get into all my different forms of identification on the interwebs here. I'll preserve some anonymity and things like that. But there's it's nice to have. I don't. Did you guys have to get that real ID like through your state or
You don't have to, you just won't be able to get on an airplane, I think.
Yeah, I have a passport. I think if you have a
But I
passport,
have
you
a
can still.
passport, yeah.
Yeah, you don't need it if you have a passport. I don't. I think.
my passport expired, but I did get the real ID just because I think I needed to renew my ID generally.
Yeah, I'll be getting it when I got to renew it. I'm sure. By
I'll
that time,
actually
I'll
be
have
doing a little
the.
travel. I will be on a plane. I'm going back to Ohio for 4th of July, so I'll get to see the fam.
Nice.
Hey, that's gonna be awesome.
Usually good weather that time of year, and love getting to see the family. My brother's got two little girls, and when you only see them a couple times a year, it's just crazy how much they grow in
No,
between, even though I see photos and stuff.
it's legal in Ohio now. Are any of your family growing it?
Unfortunately, no. I had one starting, and then you know, more important things to do with family and life.
Right.
Their position could be compromised and
Right.
things like that. So
Even
even
though
though
it's
it's
legal,
legal,
that's right. That's the sad part. Even though it's legal, people still can't be open
out and
about it the
proud.
way they should or want.
Yeah, this stuff moves slow, that's for sure. Acceptance moves really slow. But what it's gonna take eventually is gonna be it's gonna take a big suit and somebody to win a big suit against win some money against the company to make other companies either the company's nervous or their insurers nervous enough to be like, you better drop the fucking policy about testing for THC because they're protected by HIPAA or they're protected by whatever medical, um, as long as it's still accepted as medical. In most states, it's accepted as a medical treatment. So it can get them into some screwy medical laws if they start basically discriminating for medical use.
I love that, and I think that it will end up happening, but more so the groundswell of grandmas and grandpas who are taking a little CBD or smoking a little joint or taking a little vape pen or edible or gummy or whatever it is. Uh, those people, it's overnight change. They'll be a lifelong hater of the thing, thinking it is the devil's lettuce. And then one day their grandson comes along or their husband or wife or son, whoever it is, maybe even a doctor. It's like, hey, you know what? You've got really bad arthritis, and I found a lot of my patients actually benefit from a little bit of cannabis. So maybe you could try X, Y, or Z. And then they're like, you know what? It was my actual doctor telling me. I didn't go to like some hippie weed shop. It was like my doctor who told me that. And like Dr. MJ, fucking his doctor told him for his arthritis.
Last
And
time I
he's
went,
not
I
even
was
that old.
floored. I was floored last time I went to the doctor. They ask you a million questions and they asked me, do you smoke cigarettes? I was like, no. And they said, do you smoke marijuana? I said, no, I smoke cannabis. And they just looked at me and they're like, okay, and didn't say another word. And I never heard nothing, and like, it wasn't a big deal. Like, whatever. I was like, okay, I love it.
Yeah, my doctors out here have been really cannabis forward. They're like, "Oh, you're using cannabis. You're not requesting medication." Like that's something they're happy. They're like, "Oh, you're just not requesting pain medicine." So that's what they're usually dealing with is like somebody trying to ask for something else. I'm like trying to ask for
No,
less.
you guys aren't using enough cannabis. Otherwise, you wouldn't be needing to go to the doctor.
I do think that they're to some extent. I got hit by a car. Didn't get hit by a car personally. I got in a car accident, and I was a little fucked up for like a week. And
The car hit me. They had to go to the auto body shop. I was all fine, but
I got a dog bite, but I wasn't gonna bite the dog.
you don't bite back, get them on the nape of their neck, and pick it up like your puppy.
No, I
yo,
got
I heard though,
the hose out. It works great.
maybe you can verify someone in the chat. If you see dogs fighting or dog chewing up a human that it shouldn't be, they say grab it by its hind leg and pull it. And
No,
no, that won't
no,
do it.
no.
All
I
right,
can. I did that today. That did not work.
all right.
It took the hose.
No, it works.
I just took the hose. Well, one dog was locked onto another dog's foot, and so I just put the hose and fucking sprayed right up his nose, and he was drowning.
Oh yeah,
So
waterboarding that would work. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
keep
He
this little
like that.
flashlight, and I hit the strobe.
And it freaks
My
them out.
mother-in-law has, or not, yeah, mother-in-law. I think that's what it is, right? My wife's mom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's got three Great Pyrenees, which are dogs that like literally will kill wolves. They're fucking huge, like
I
herding
think
dogs. They'll
yeah, they're pretty
protect.
big,
They're massive, bro. And
like baby horses.
so two of them, like maybe the last time I was there, 2 times ago, ended up going at each other, and they're like baring teeth, like biting, growling, and the mom's like yelling and screaming. I remembered I watched this video about this guy who'd run with his flashlight. I think it was in Thailand or something, and dogs would always attack him, so he hit him with the bright flashlight, even just without the strobe, and it like overwhelms their OODA loop, so they just get overstimulated and they can't like see or think because it's so bright, and they just look kind of confused and they like walk away. I calmed the fuck down. They stopped fighting immediately when I
All
hit him with
right.
that. So bright ass flashlight. Shout out to Matthew Gates. He actually
That looks
recommended
like
this one to me, and definitely not sponsored, but Streamlight ProTac 1L 1AA. It takes three different types of batteries. You can use rechargeable batteries in here, although it can't be recharged. I just recharge the battery like separately. But shit's bright as hell. It's fairly small, but yeah, it can definitely like wash out my entire camera. And if you do that even in the daytime, he did it like one of the first times he ever came over. I can't remember what the circumstances were, but he popped it like that just real quick, and it was like a flashbang in the middle of the day. I couldn't see shit. He was like 5, 10 feet away from me. I was like, whoa. And it's like maybe a little bit bigger than a double A battery. But yeah, this fucking little light cannon, if you hit somebody with that, like I carry pepper spray as well, but like even just this thing alone, somebody's trying to walk up to you with ill intention. Think about looking at your grow light. You know,
Mhm.
it's one of those diodes, and it's bright. They over clock it because it sucks these batteries life's straight out of them to be as bright as fucking possible. So definitely shout out to Matthew Gates, Sync Angel. I just saw somebody fucking sadly enough posted a cannabis community, please identify this, and there's like 30 people already identified, so I didn't even bother tagging them, but they had spotted lanternfly larvae on their plant. I was like, oh fuck no, that's not something you want to see. And then somebody posted like the flamethrower GIF, the like little emoji of the guy wearing like the full flame suit, just blasting a giant ball of flame. And I know that's one of Spartan's favorite approaches for killing it with fire, but
Most
I
things are
actually
not
don't even
resistant to
remember.
fire. Most things, surprisingly enough, are eradicated with fire.
Funny enough, that is very effective for weed killer, for pest killer. They have like different types of really cool farm apparatus that have like either electronic things that like when they touch a weed, it like explodes the fucking weed because it just like sends so many volts of electricity through it. Or they'll just use old-fashioned propane. Those have been around for a long time where they'll just before they plant, they'll go through with like a propane bottle and then a bunch of different heads, and it just literally throws flame straight down out of the top of the field, and it's damn effective. It's scorched earth strategy, right? So they literally kill everything off and then replant with, and probably even you know, I would imagine farmers at large have figured out like mycorrhizal fungi and other beneficial microbes. So we're not alone in benefiting from those when we grow our cannabis. The corn growers and all those other people out there are undoubtedly growing with lots of different stuff. So although many of them are using chemical ag,
I'm
which
actually
is
saving up for one of those. There's one at the Tractor Supply right now, a portable. You carry your propane tank with you. It's on a lead, just an arm, and it's a trigger, and at the end a long nozzle with a fucking just flamethrower at the end. And you just that's how you weed. You just go and just whoosh, fire it, boom, weeded. Pretty
I knew
sweet.
you would love that. I saw that. I saw that at Tractor Supply, and I was like, man, Spartan, I must sent you a picture of that. That's hilarious, but of course, you already know about it, and you're planning on buying. It's
Oh
not
yeah,
if, but
yeah,
when.
that's just where it fits in the budget, it's not on the top of priorities, but it's on that list.
I've got some stuff like that on my wish list to buy soon. Slash, some stuff's more longer term, but yeah, it's nice when you can knock that list off, and then Seed Person One, I think he's not Seed Person One anymore. He's just Seed Person now. Synchronicity Seeds, I think, even got dropped, but Seed Person, the fucking man, he posted one a while ago. Oh man, I lost my train of thought just trying to think about his fucking name. Um, oh, he made a post basically saying like, "What do you ask for Christmas when you've basically bought yourself everything you wanted all year?" And as a grower, I think there's something about that when you get into a really good groove and like you're not spending any money on cannabis or cannabis supplies or cannabis equipment, and you just got a little bit of abundance of cash, and you can treat yourself a little bit, buy this or that, or your wife or your family or whatever. Uh, that was one of my proudest moments was teaching my barber and then seeing his kids get like more presents that year for Christmas. Like I literally like got a little teared up thinking about like knowing his little boys and like seeing them get way more shit because I taught him that skill and gave him, a little bit of a nudge in the right direction. And it made a positive impact on his life. And I still have a great relationship with the dude. So it's like, I don't know, it's the power of education and sharing this great skill that we can kind of all learn together.
And for me, the plant is like you were saying, well, I guess it's way earlier now, so it's a way throwback, but how the plants like opens you up to doing other things or whatever. But for me, even like the focus on the terpene of the plant, for example, we know if you look at what do terpenes do and what are their effects on you, what can it, and you're talking about like citrus can be uplifting and the gassy stuff can be more sedative and um, stuff like linalool it's really popular in other plants like you were saying with the pinene and the pine trees and that gets you on like okay if you go down the wormhole of cannabis as medicine and it's a special plant because it has this ability to grab all these multitude. It doesn't really focus usually on one of those. It grabs that full spectrum and puts it all in one spot for you where you can literally pick it off the plant, dry it, and smoke it and get a medicinal effect. It's pretty special, but it doesn't mean you give up on all the other plants. And for me, cannabis has kind of gotten me into the herbalism world of like, okay, cannabis is a healing plant. What else have they fucking lied to me about? And what else can I grow for myself? What kind of conditions do I have that I want to treat? Is there some plant that I can grow that might help with me? And wow, has that been fun? Um, so for me, it's like I'm growing other plants, I'm growing my own food, I'm growing my own medicine, and it makes me feel powerful because I'm doing it all myself and I close that loop and I know how it was prepared. I don't have to wonder anything. So cannabis for me, it's like it's just led to so many more good things. So yeah, it's a gateway plant or gateway drug or whatever you want to call it, but to better things for me.
I 100% agree. I think herbalism is underrated in modern societies. I think it's underappreciated. I will say JP from NB had a quick tip for Spartan if you're considering getting one of those propane weeders. I said he knows a guy well that burnt their house down using one of those propane weeders because they hit some weeds and the weeds walked away and it caught a greenhouse on fire and burnt that puppy. So just be careful when you are using it to be cognizant of the things that you
Sounds
are
like
scorching.
sounds like that thing's pretty effective. I bet you there's no fucking weeds in that greenhouse either, was there?
Oh man.
Dude, I got me one of those, like someone mentioned it in chat, the roof torches, like when you're roofing down roofing material. But I was trying to use it to like clean my driveway of the ice and shit. And man, it took for like I figured it'd be a lot quicker. It would take forever if you wanted to. It was like real ice though. It was pretty thick.
The problem is once ice, yeah, it's like that flame, even though it's hitting it, it's like there's a properties with water. It can like take so much
So
heat.
much heat. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a winning
It did,
proposition most
no,
times with ice.
it was useless pretty much. But it was a good idea. I thought it was a good idea at the time.
It's a cool object to have.
I like the idea of the buried in if you have concrete or something or something where you can attach those lines that just heat up. There's just concrete's wonderful because you can just drop it into the concrete before it's
Yeah, yeah.
hardened. You plug that bitch in and just let it
Heated
melt.
sidewalk, heated garage,
Yeah,
driveway. Yeah,
heated
man.
floors.
Radiant heat in the house. Yeah,
Yeah,
I put that in a couple times, but I never had it. That's brilliant though, because heat rises. So,
exactly.
it's just a no-brainer. It's perfect.
Getting back on the herbalism side of things, there was a brand here for a little while that was selling joints that had roses, lavender, and other plants mixed into the joint. And I actually enjoyed them. I thought it led to a nice high and good flavor, and they smoked appropriately, like it was dried and cured and everything properly. So I think done right, that stuff can actually be a nice change of experience where it's not just pure cannabis. Like there is benefits from, especially like linalool is way easier to get in lavender than it is in cannabis. It's pretty rare in cannabis, relatively, unless you've got a specific strain. Um, and there's honestly not a ton of them, and many of them are like no longer super popular anymore. So it's maybe they're not, the seeds aren't being made, the clones aren't necessarily around anymore. Like a lavender kush or just the lavender, soma's lavender. Like a lot of this stuff is like not as prevalent anymore.
So like
So
that freak show that was going around a while. I tried. That was Blue Kiss Gardens had one. That was really lavender tasting to me too. That was another one. I was like, ooh, I haven't had this come around in a while. I like the lavender.
it is nice when you have one that you haven't seen in a while where it's just like rings your bell a little bit. It's nice. I
Yeah,
personally like lavender, just the actual lavender plant, like live lavender.
me
You see
too.
it and smell it. It's beautiful. I just had a really nice night with my buddy last night. We went out with our wives and got a little dinner, and we walked around Balboa Park here in San Diego, and there's a rose garden, and they have all these different roses, and one of them, this one section is like the Rosie the Riveter section, and there's like a Rosie the Riveter rose. There's like
Okay.
50 different types of roses or whatever
So did
in
you
the
get
little
your
garden.
cut and put it in your pocket?
I think they were monitoring it, like with
Okay.
videos and stuff, because it says do not take any cuttings, like by law, like this code and whatever. So I'm like, I'm gonna leave nature be and let the people that tend to this garden continue to do the great job that they're doing. Because it was a great experience just going around seeing which ones smell nice, which ones don't. I fucking stop and smell the roses, man. I think that's what makes life beautiful is experiencing those things and getting to spend time with a buddy I hadn't seen in a while. I've been busy and life changes for everybody and we all go through our different stuff, but it was nice to see him after not seeing him for a while. So that was a great
Just
experience.
being in that setting of nature is always good too, and it's got a psychological kick to you too. It's always uplifting, it seems like, to be out in nature, no matter what it is, roses or trees or just a local park.
Even
So much better to
architecture.
go. Yeah, if I had an option of just going out at lunch to go sit at the park and eat my lunch or sit in a lunchroom with no windows, fuck that lunchroom. Unless it's hot out.
We parked and walked a pretty good way through. I mean, this Balboa Park area is pretty famous, but it was the first time I'd ever parked and gone across this bridge I'd seen 100 times. It's called the Cabrillo Bridge. Cabrillo Bridge. It was built in 1915. 1915, 100 fucking 10-year-old bridge. And I walked across that shit. Cars were driving across it. It's a little two
Wow.
lane, and then there's sidewalks on both sides. It's 175 feet tall, I think, and like maybe 1,500 feet long or something. I can't remember the exact specs. I think that's what I Googled. But when they built it, it was for the World's Fair in San Diego. That happened in like 1916 or 1917. That was like a Panama Canal opening and like them being a port. They wanted to do a World's Fair there. And that bridge was built to be like permanent. Like it's supposed to last forever. And here it is 110 years later. I walked across it. It was solid as fuck. So whoever
Uh,
engineered that did a damn good job. It's kind of like the almost Roman arch style where it's like got heavy, nice concrete poured arches. And when you drive into that area in San Diego, I can't remember exactly which freeway it takes you in, but there's a really beautiful kind of view. You're like down in like a valley that you drive through it, and it's like nice green rolling hills, like rolling up kind of the city and the beaches. And it's San Diego's a really fucking cool town. I don't need to tell anybody. I guess it's already very fucking popular and expensive and hard to live here, even travel here. But if you can ever take the time, highly, highly suggest it and hit me up. Because like Seed Person once said, if I'm ever out in Colorado, hit him up and we'll get some good smoke and good food. That's the open invitation for anybody. If you all want to come out to San Diego, fucking hit me up because I'd love to show you around. There's lots of great places out here. Good cannabis, good people, nice beaches, fucking good smoke too. I already said good cannabis, but yeah, definitely put you on to all the best stuff. Do you have any travels coming up, either of you guys? Anything planned this year?
I don't know, man. I know that we did the last thing we did was MJ BizCon, and that was pretty, I think, successful for us. I don't know if we're gonna do that all again or not. I haven't really talked about it. We didn't go overseas this year like we were originally planning, and thank God we didn't with the tariff thing coming. That was unexpected, but we're rolling with the punches and doing fine with that. We came through that pretty good. So I don't expect a whole lot of. I haven't heard of anything, any solid plans for sure for anything yet. But probably MJ BizCon again.
It's interesting working with a company, even if you're like a smallish company, if you're not the very tip of the top running the accounting or something, without looking at all the numbers, it's like, man, we met a lot of people and like probably made a lot of sales, but it's like hard to really know. Like I've gone and done work with my wife's company and
Oh
it
yeah.
feels like good things are happening, but it's like behind closed doors, it's like hopefully everything is going as we're anticipating. And it seems like for both cases, her company and your guys over at JML Lighting, it seems like things are going well. So I think when you have people working hard that are passionate and behind the company and really support the cause, it makes a huge difference versus just hiring somebody who's there to get a paycheck, which a lot of people admittedly are. My wife is not one of those people. She's like her old boss loves to kind of rub in the face of her new employees that she hired two people to replace my wife because she hired one and they were like, this is too much work. So she hired another one. Now these two people, and she's like, I hired two people to do your job and they're still not doing everything that you used to do. So like I'll give them both a hard time. Like one person used to do both of your jobs. Like you can't tell me it's too much for one person because like it's just like I don't know. So certain people's work ethic or ability to balance. I will just admit, I married a very special woman. Lady Greenstock is unbelievably intelligent, hardworking, and beautiful on top of all that. So I'm very, very blessed to get to spend as much time as I do with her. So I'm thankful for that. Not to blow too much smoke up my own ass, but I'm very happy with the life decisions that got me to the point that I got to marry that lovely person. So she's supported not only my growing, but also this podcasting. And so you all have also have her to thank for the show because she could have been like, fucking a headache about it or made it hard for me to do, but she's made it easier and easier and supported it and always been my, number one fan and biggest supporter. So
Shout out to all the significant others out there. They don't get shout outs enough. And yeah, they're doing a lot of the work behind the scenes that nobody hears about.
in some cases, like
Make it
they're
all
doing,
possible.
yeah, like way more, than a lot of people realize. So it's something that it's easy to forget to give those shout outs, but I think they're the most needed. And I don't know. I
Yeah,
think
and it could be the total opposite because back in the day, like when you heard people getting busted, it was always the ex who ratted on them, whether it be a dude or a chick, you know. But yeah,
treat people right, man. It's a ode to that was I think one of the I think Ed Rosenthal said that in one of his books. He said the most likely person to bust you isn't the cops. It's your,
hmm
ex-partner that you screwed over for a few points, or it's your ex-girlfriend that you broke up with to hook up with the younger, cuter chick or whatever. And you give somebody a reason to have vengeance and spite and hate, and you're doing something illegal on top of it. It's like, well, that's a very fucking easy thing for them to blow up. And a lot of people have their
uh,
shit blown up over that, which is unfortunate. And that's not the only reason they should be a good person. They should just be a good person for the sake of being a good person. And it feels fucking great just to like be nice to people and fucking treat people right and then have it in return. If you're lucky enough to get into a relationship where you have that mutual respect and love, it's a beautiful thing. But I understand it is sometimes rare in this world. There's a lot of toxic relationships and struggles. And a lot of us come from homes that maybe represented that as the model. So we might fall into it more easily, but we can break the cycle. And with that said, there's about 15 minutes until the Michigan Bros Grow Show, and I don't want to hold Spartan too long if you guys are going to be going to do Michigan Bros Grow Show tonight. You're muted, sir.
Sorry, I was muted. I hit like three times, it wouldn't unmute. Before the show started, I hadn't got any message about it, so I assume no. But I'm looking now and I don't see, yeah, I don't see a link, so it doesn't look like there's a show tonight. But I
Sounds
do
good.
want to shout out to Fergroli and Mrs. Fergroli, Maz Hupat on Instagram. They did have a baby, no problems. Everybody's happy and healthy, so shout out to them. Parents still the reigning champion and parents, they're going for the gold, man. They just won't quit.
How many kids does he have now?
I'm not sure if he wants me to say that, so I'm not gonna say, but he's got quite a few. He's got
Good on him.
more than me. That's for sure.
Hey man, we need more Figueroles in the world, so I'm happy to hear that. Let him
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Congratulations and my condolences all at the same time.
Well, they're homesteaders, so they need more people to pick weeds, and he's working on that,
Oh,
man.
really? That's awesome, dude. Then
Yeah.
yeah, that is awesome.
more
Yeah,
hands in the garden, man, and more
dude, I'm
footprints in
over
there.
here in Amish country, and I'm learning their ways, man. They got a lot of jump on a whole bunch of other stuff. I'll tell you that.
I loved that was my favorite parts of being in Ohio, in Northeast Ohio slash PA. Some of the Amish country product you can get, it's better than anything that comes out of any modern facility anywhere.
Good
Like
food too. Food that sticks to your bones on the way down, man. Mm.
the woodworking, the basket making, the fucking just they can set up a house in a day, dude.
Bro,
It's
I saw them. They came up here, that not too far from me, a couple streets down. There's this like little small, real small farm, but they had a lot of trees in the forest area. And apparently they just wanted somebody to come clear a section out to put another pasture in. I shit you not. They come out and they were sawing down the trees, and they took those trees and they sawed them into lumber and they made fences for the they left with three pastures fenced in, three different pastures they could use, made out of the wood that they cut off out of the forest that they cleared, and then they had stacks of lumber. Just stacks of lumber, hand hewn by them. I was just like, it was a week. They were there for like a week. I was like, what in the, that is amazing.
the work ethic and the talent both are impeccable. I mean, there's a lot of, other things that could be said, but when it's just undeniable the level of skill and just hard work, and there is something beautiful to it, you know. You want to make friends with those people.
Absolutely. I want to share him some
Yeah,
weight. Like, hey, you're sore. I know it. I've seen you working, man. Take some of this. This could make you feel better tomorrow. Maybe cut that tree down from my front yard. I've been wanting that to come down.
dude, they got the Amish are growing weed in Pennsylvania. Supposedly, I
I was
watched
gonna
some
say they do
YouTube
grow
clip.
their own.
Yeah, they grow everything. So
Them and the natives, dude. Like when I was in Ohio, it was a lot of the natives growing back in the days because they had some of the only legal protection they were able to grow on some of the reservations, I think, and not necessarily face as much persecution. So that's
yeah.
I always claim that's where the skunk was coming from, where I was at, was off the resis. So that was some of the best stuff that I still smoke to this day. That's the one thing that I can't find anymore. I need to go back to Ohio and fucking look around.
Well, that's another cool thing is even here in Michigan, the reservations, they have their own laws on cannabis, and they get
Yep.
Same here.
so I mean there's places here you can go to a reserv or a what is it, a tribal doctor, and get, instead of going to a regular doctor and get a medical card, you go to a tribal doctor, and if you get accepted into the tribe, they can actually send you a tribal card, which gives you, all the rights there on the reservation, which is pretty cool.
That is cool, man. I'm a fan of being connected with multiple communities. I think the more communities that you can, gain acceptance from, like genuinely and naturally, the better. It's like it's great to get to learn more about different people's cultures and what they offer. And in some cases, it's very fire product, fucking good weed,
Yeah.
good food, good music, good times, good people. It's there's so many good people out there that if you haven't gotten to engage with somebody from that background, sometimes it could be intimidating or whatever because you just don't know somebody until you do, you know? It's just like those older people that are they've never tried cannabis until they do. And then when they do, oftentimes they fucking love it. It's oftentimes it might change their life for the better.
Dude, even when I was a little kid, I thought I thought weed was bad. That's like exactly what you said would happen with like an old person. They finally try it and they enjoy it, and they're like, yes. Well, that's what happened with me. That's what I might think when. Well, I don't know because yeah, I was brought up in a Christian family. It was like I went to Christian school even until I got kicked out. So yeah, I had a
Did
little
you get
different
kicked out for weed?
upbringing. But once I tried weed, I'm like, man, there is nothing bad. And by I think you know what? I don't know if I drank before or after. I didn't know. I got drunk before I smoked weed the first time. And I was like, man, they are so full of shit because I had gotten hungover before I got stoned the first time. And that's when I realized that, yeah, I already didn't believe half of the shit that adults were telling me. But once I smoked weed, I was like, I'm not believing anything until I verify it for my damn self.
And that's the craziest thing to me. It's just like, I don't know how long you think you could get away with this campaign and nobody would try it. And it's like you do more you'd think you
Yeah, yeah.
government you do more damage by lying like that and then allow someone to try it and see your lie. You're like, okay, I'm gonna believe nothing you say now.
Right. So
It's
now
like
I'm going to
big
go
You know?
try
media.
cocaine because if
It,
marijuana isn't that bad, may as well try that and
Yeah.
then try that,
I think
try
we're seeing that
everything.
with big
But
media. That's
and then
why
and then we have to learn the
podcasts have
hard
taken
way with
over.
certain things. So yeah, they should have just been honest the first damn time. Been like, listen, if you want to have some fun, you can smoke some weed, drink some beer. Don't be drinking all tequila all night. That won't be good. But smoke some weed, maybe a couple beers. Do not do cocaine. Do not do heroin. Never inject into your veins anything. Like that's what I would tell
Anything.
my kids if I could find them. If I maybe have some. Like I don't think I have any,
If I
but
could find them.
there's possibilities across the lands.
There's some scattered possibilities here and there.
Little American ones running around, maybe in America, maybe elsewhere.
All over
Someone's gonna
Europe.
track me down.
It's got some in Australia, all over the place.
No, but
Some kids
seriously, I
winning
thought
eating
about that a
contests.
lot. Because that's what happened to me. I was like, yeah, if I learned that they were lying about marijuana, that's why it definitely is not a gateway drug either. I don't care what anybody says. And uh, but yeah, when you realize they lied about that, then you could question other things that you shouldn't be questioning that like were real. So it's a bad situation.
I think dare and religion also kind of turned me against it until I tried it, and then I was like, wait. Then I started questioning a lot of things, and I think it certainly makes people more open-minded, and I think that is generally net positive because it
Yeah.
leads you to questioning your own belief, because you were forced to go through some sort of change like that opened your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a definitely. Yeah, I don't regret that that happened that way because it taught me a lesson to, hey, use your brain. You don't just blindly follow what somebody says and just that's what it is. Fucking look, the information's always been there. The studies have always been there. You just had to open your fucking brain and go look for them. And that was a valuable lesson to learn that am still, reaping the benefits from because now when I read a headline, I'm like, huh, I might want to read the actual fucking article too before I even comment on this or get outraged. And then I might want to cross-reference this to make sure it's not satire or AI or bullshit completely before I
So many
even
times
get
I just
outraged.
say to myself before I look further, that's bullshit. And then like a week later it comes out, oh, it was bullshit. And I was like, thank goodness I didn't like buy into the bullshit. And
Right.
it does destroy credibility. I think that's why big media, both sides of the fence, are so distrusted by the people in general. Like they're worried about the podcasters because podcasters have genuine connections with their audience. They trust us. They believe us because we don't feed them bullshit. We tell them what we think. We say exactly how we feel about things for the most part. And we, are honest. We don't have other agendas. We're very honest about our agendas. We want people to grow more cannabis. We want cannabis to have a more open access. But it's like we're not paid by some agencies or organizations to do that. It's our passion. It's something that we want to just spread that education forward and allow others to maybe benefit in similar ways that we have, and maybe do the exact same thing that we're doing. Share. Whenever somebody says I want to make a show, I'm like, do it. I don't care if you get one listen. I'll be your first listener. I'll be your first subscriber. I'll be the first comment. I'll listen to your first show, second show. I'll be your fucking big fan. Like I'll support all of you guys if you want to do a show, if you want to do anything in this space.
I love to find new shows and take it because usually that's what I'll do is like if I have something to do like trim or something like that, maybe run some RSO. I'm looking for a cannabis podcast or show or something to listen to just in the background. Uh, I really listen to that. I don't know, it's always interesting to me. I want to learn more about it, and that's the best way I learn. I think is just to absorb myself in it.
I
So
like seeing gardens though too.
I like seeing,
That's why I
yeah,
follow
Yeah,
like
like
7,500 growers. Like every time I open my Instagram, it's just like all cannabis grows. And if it's not, I'm just like not interested. Unfollow, block, mute. Like I just don't want to see it. Like I want to see cute animals and cannabis
I love
plants.
the people that commit to a daily garden update, which I don't have the energy for, but I love right now my favorite is uh Yellow
Yellow
Skunk
Skunk
Farm.
Farm,
Yeah, I love watching him and he's building out that bed a
little
little bit
trench.
more. Yeah, yeah.
I just
And he
watched that.
sorts the rocks and he's putting mud in. It's
So
fun.
cool, man.
Yep.
I'll never stop shouting out that page, man. Yellow Skunk Farm is doing awesome stuff. We'll have to have them come on at some point because
there we go.
they're doing cool shit, man.
He'd be
You
happy
know,
to
I
come
would.
on, man. He'd be
You
happy.
guys know Levels Grow Room, right? Levels. He
I've
doesn't
Yes.
heard
grow
of
show.
it.
He has like yeah.
I actually met him
Uh,
in Vegas. Yeah.
he pushes everybody coming on showing their plants. I love that. And I'll shout out to Garden Cultivation Network. I forget. I think it's Mr. Ganix and
Mr.
T
Ganix,
Bonnie.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and they always have grows on. I always like seeing different grows because you can see, like I said, I love this phrase, "Steal with your eyes." It's like you see something in someone else's grow that's really good, you can implement it in yours.
You always
You
hear some
know,
random shit, some random tip, some random
yeah,
thing.
that
Like
like
it,
really
you
hooks you
never know what
up.
you're gonna. I could listen to a 2 hour show and get a 10-second clip that I'm like, oh
Mm-hmm.
man, I'm gonna do that thing that they just said because
And
I
it's
never thought
gonna
about that.
make it a lot easier on you for whatever. It's worth the. But plus, you get to see all different flowers and different plants, which
How
is
their
really
lights are
cool.
working, how their tents are working, how their fans are working. It's like it's kind of like our brain. We're not an artificial intelligence, we're an actual intelligence. We get to screen all this shit and see this is working, this isn't working. Like if you don't see a whole bunch of blurples anymore, probably for a reason, right? There's still a handful of them floating around in the community, but for the most part, you're not seeing that red blue spectrum anymore. It's mostly white light. It's mostly LEDs. And
Looks like yeah.
the wisdom of the crowd is like I was talking about the gelato place. It's the only place I've waited like 45 minutes in line for something. Like, but I think sometimes my dad always said if there's like a full parking lot or a long line, it's usually for a reason. People are generally
Yeah, the reason's for you to drive by. That's the reason. You just drive by.
I think there's things out there that are worth the hype in certain cases, but not always. Don't be a sheep and just go jump in every line you see. But occasionally it is worth, the craft and enjoying that. Treat yourself a little bit every now and again. Because even as much of a health conscious individual as I am, I eat pretty healthy. I exercise a lot. I try to not take any harmful substances. Um, but I'll still have some shitty food every now and again from fast food or ice cream or pizza or something. And I don't think that'll
Dude,
kill
ice
you.
cream and pizza is good for you. Don't believe the hype.
I think I'm a little lactose intolerant. I'm not gonna lie there. So I will say I don't think it's great for me
Okay,
personally. It doesn't
we'll
digest as
let you
well as a lot of other
slide.
foods, but it tastes good going in, and I'm not gonna fucking deny myself that mouth pleasure for the entire really of my life to, fucking I don't know. I think that, like I said, some shit's worth enjoying. And whether it's like ultra fine cannabis that you grow yourself, or maybe you, even if you can't grow your own, dole out a little bit and treat yourself one or two times to the fancier, better shit that you've heard is really
Mhm.
good from people in the know that actually grow themselves. So some stuff
Yeah,
is
if you can get 10 grams for $5, it's probably not the highest quality stuff. It might be a good deal in your eyes, but
But
probably in 9.9% or 9.9 out of 10 times, it's not the good stuff. It's not the good stuff.
I agree with that. And we shouldn't always shop on price in certain places. But with that said, it is 6 o'clock here on the West Coast. So I'm going to pass it over to Spartan Grown for final thoughts and shout outs.
I'm gonna shout out that dispo. I never thought I would shout out dispo, but when I went into that dispo, the name of it was Fuel 420. It was in Michigan Center, Michigan. They asked me, "Do you have a medical card first?" And I said no. And they said because we still honored. They weren't a medical dispensary, but they said they still honor it, and they'd give me 10% off. Um, they said, "Are you a veteran?" I said, "No, I have veterans in my family, but I'm not a veteran." And they said, "Oh, so well, we give discount for that too." I'm like, "Well, that's cool." And then he said, I'm just asking for the discount. Do you have cancer? I'm like, no, but I'm impressed that you asked me that. So yeah, shout out to those guys there. They're doing the right thing. There are still people, even in the commercial industry, trying to push the medical side of thing and not forget about it at least. So big ups to them. Big ups, chat. Always cool to see you there. Much love. and keep growing, everybody.
And hats off to them because that's in spite of all the challenges in the legal industry with all the taxes and fighting against all the people that are doing it unregulated and even like large organizations from other countries coming in and doing it at large scale. So it's amazing that people are still willing and able to make that push. So good on them. Cheers, Spartan. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And next up, we got last and certainly not least, the American one.
Yo, shout out to Jack for hosting again. Shout out to Lady Greenstalk for being so accommodated with the Jack on the podcast. That's awesome. And shout out to everyone in chat. Shout out to Seed Person and everyone else in chat, man. It's always good to see people. You know, I don't even know if Seed Person made it tonight, but he definitely is one of the good ones, sending out beans across the land, and I appreciate him as well as many others. But I'm the American one, and we'll see you guys next week or somewhere in between. Have a great week, and peace out.
Cheers, Tal. Always good having you, and definitely appreciate Seed Person One as well. Great dude in the community. Appreciate everybody who's here. Brian 420 PM, Penny Pebblers, a whole lot of way too many people to name. Actually, I won't keep going on the list because I'll forget somebody and feel bad about not shouting everybody out. But it was always awesome to see so many familiar faces and names. I'm gonna give at least one more wrench here from another familiar face, adding as a moderator. But I am at Jack Greenstock. You all know where you can find me and where you can find my stuff. So appreciate you all coming, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Cheers, peace and love. And next week we're gonna do some chat Q&A and open panel. So get ready to show off your grow. If you want to show your grow, next Sunday, 4 p.m. West Coast, 6 p.m. I think no 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Yeah, 7 to 9, right? On the East Coast.
Yeah,
9,
7
7 to
7.
9.
Start
7
7
to 9.
p.m. Sunday.
And shout out to I think it was We Nerd DWC who made some cool like I think they're AI generated songs admittedly, but they're cheap home grow songs. I retweeted them on Twitter or reposted them or re-X'd them, whatever the fuck it is now. But he has a whole playlist of cool shit that he's made. Like there's like a 90s version and like a 70s version of like a cheap home grow. I meant to play it on the show tonight. I'll have to do that next week. But look forward to that. So peace and love y'all. Catch you next time. Cheers.
Nice.